Chapter 10:18, The Instructor in Charge, Humph. So what if a bunch of trash is offended? The people from the Huang class will never be able to defeat the people from the Tian class. Yin Sulian said nonchalantly. In her eyes, the people from the Huang class were just a bunch of trash. The examinees who were assigned to the Huang class looked at Yin Sulian angrily. However, they dared not speak out in anger. It was mainly due to because that they did not have the confidence to. Most of these people were the people who followed Yun Chuzhou in the fourth round of the test, so their spiritual power was relatively low. However, they had protected Yun Chuzhou as instructed, which was why they were lucky enough to pass the Tianyuan Academy's test. Yun Chuzhou looked at Yin Sulian indifferently. Nothing is so absolute. Don't be so full of yourself. Otherwise, you will be slapped in the face. Humph, slapped in the face. Yun Chuzhou, don't flatter yourself. Do you think you are great just because you got 2 first place in the test? It was just dog shit luck. Let's wait and see. Alright, there's still a long way to go. Let's see if you, the amazing Yin Sulian, will be better than me, a trash student of the Huang class. Yun Chuzhou said lightly. Humph, well see. I'll let you know that trash will never be able to make it. Yin Sulian curled her lips. Not only did the students of the Huang class lack talent, but the instructors who taught them were people who were not valued by the academy, therefore, the students of the Huang class had always had the lowest status in Tianyuan Academy. After Yin Sulian had finished speaking, she walked away arrogantly. She felt that she had completely gained the upper hand with the class placements. Moreover, the treatment of the Huang class was inferior. In the future, she felt Yun Chuzhou would never be able to make a name for herself. Very soon, 4 instructors walked over and gestured for everyone to follow their respective instructors to handle the matters of admission. These 4 instructors were also the instructors in charge of the 4 classes. From the academy's tests to food, clothing, and transportation, they were all taken care of by those instructors. The instructor of the Tian class, Mo Hanshuan, was a middle-aged man. He looked very refined, but his brows were filled with arrogance. When he spoke to the other 3 instructors, there was always a hint of superiority in his tone. Ji Bingyu, the instructor of the D class, was a woman who looked to be in her early 30s. Her appearance was elegant but had a cold temperament. Cheng Yuenda, the instructor of the Xian class, was a fat old man. He smiled like the Maitreya Buddha as if he was very easy to talk to. However, his eyes were sparkling, and one look was enough to tell that he was a smiling tiger with hidden intentions. When Yun Chuzhou saw the instructor of the Huang class, her heart felt like it had been ripped out. Fuck, could it be that there was no one else available in Tianyuan Academy? Even if the Huang class was not liked, it couldn't be to the extent of letting this slovenly beggar be our instructor, right? The supervisor of the Huang class, Ji Sha, was a slovenly middle-aged man. He had a full beard and his clothes were full of oil stains. One look and one could tell that he had not changed clothes for a long time. The hair on his head was also in tufts. He was as slovenly as he could be. The 3 instructors clearly did not like Ji Sha. When they spoke, they stayed as far away as possible from him while wearing looks of disdain. The students of the Huang class felt a chill in their hearts. They were already disappointed when they were assigned to the Huang class. Now that they looked at the instructor in charge, the disappointment grew. Considering that the academy had assigned them such an instructor, it was obvious that they did not value the Huang class very much. Yin Sulian saw the instructor in charge of the Huang class, and the pride in her eyes became even more apparent. Yun Chuzhou, from today onwards, the difference between you and me will be like the difference between heaven and earth. The new students followed their respective instructors and officially entered the Tianyuan Academy. Chapter 10:19, Fragrant Roasted Chicken Drumsticks. Everyone entered through the main entrance of the Tianyuan Academy, and a sense of pride suddenly rose in their hearts. Even the students of the Huang class felt that their pride was boundless. No matter how weak they were, being able to enter the Tianyuan Academy was still a testament to their strength. Everyone came to the Tianyuan Academy's General Affairs office to receive the Academy's starter kit. Each person had 2 sets of Academy uniforms and 1 identity jade token. The Academy uniforms of each class were roughly the same. They were all white long robes, but the Tianyuan Academy logo at the corner of their robes were of different colors. The Tian class was white, the D class was purple, the Xian class was blue, and the Huang class was black. The students of the Tian class suddenly felt that they were different from the others. They acted all high and mighty, and when they reached the student dormitory, the difference was even more obvious. The dormitory of the Tian class was closer to the central area of Tianyuan Academy. The D class was next, and the Xian class was next. As for the Huang class, they were furthest away, close to the walls of Tianyuan Academy. The most important thing was that it was forbidden to fly within Tianyuan Academy and they could only walk on 2 legs. That meant the students of the Huang class spent much more time on the road than the students of the other 3 classes. The instructors of the other 3 classes patiently instructed the students of their respective classes to pay attention to various matters. The instructor of Huang class, Ji Sha, took out a roasted chicken drumstick and said to the students of the Huang class while chewing, "You guys go behind the 3 classes and listen to them. They are all saying the same thing anyway. Go now." The students of the Huang class felt as if 10,000 divine beasts were roared in their hearts. Holy shit! Are there any other instructors as irresponsible as you? What do you mean it's the same thing anyway? You're lazy. You're lazy. However, they were powerless to do anything. The students of Huang class had no choice but to thicken their skins and stand behind the other classes, listening to the other 3 instructors explain the things they should pay attention to. Yun Chujia's focus was different from the others. She sniffed. "Emma, where did this instructor Ji Sha get the drumstick from? Why did it look so delicious? The outer skin was golden and the meat inside was juicy. It looked very delicious." Ji Sha was munching happily when he felt a hungry wolf's gaze. He looked up and saw a pretty little girl who did not go to the other instructors to listen to the rules. Instead, she stared at the roasted drumstick in his hand. Ji Sha could not eat the roasted chicken drumstick anymore. He frowned. "Little girl, why aren't you listening to the rules? Aren't you afraid of violating the Academy's rules?" Yun Chujio said with a smile, "It's okay. I'll just ask the others later. Instructor Ji Sha, may I ask, where did you buy this roasted chicken? Why does it smell so good?" Ji Sha's eyes twitched. He never dreamed that a student would ask such a question. He looked at the drumstick in his hand and then looked at Yun Chujio. "This is made by Old Ding in the canteen. He doesn't usually make it a part of the regular menu. Instructor Ji Sha, ask that Old Ding to make a few hundred for me. I'll give him spirit stones." Yun Chujia's eyes shone with blue light. This roast chicken looked very good. Ji Sha frowned and looked at Yun Chujio. "Why should I help you? Instructor Ji Sha, I won't let you help me for free. I see that you are also a very busy person. I am the most enthusiastic person. In the future, I will take care of all the matters of the Huang class. I will take care of everything that is passed down from the top to the bottom. You just need to say the word." Yun Chujio blinked her eyes, she said with a smile. Ji Sha squinted his eyes and a faint light flashed in them. "Deal." Chapter 10:20, The Class Monitor of the Huang Class. Instructor Ji Sha, do you have any ready-made ones in your storage ring? Give me a few to satisfy my craving first. Yun Chujio said slyly. This was the first time Ji Sha had been a responsible instructor. He never expected to meet such a weird student. The corner of his mouth twitched and he passed 3 roast chickens to Yun Chujio. "I don't have much left. I'll let you try these last 3 first." Yun Chujio did not bother with manners. She directly broke off a chicken leg and ate it. It was as delicious as she had imagined, she said as she ate, only roasted chicken is too boring. Instructor G, ask old Ding to get me something else. If you're tired of eating roasted chicken, you can change the taste. Eat something light, such as pork trotters and knuckles. Ji Sha's eyes twitched, pork trotters and pork knuckles were light. Are you kidding me? After the Huang class students listened to the other three instructors' explanations, they returned to see their sloppy instructor Yin Chujio holding a roast chicken leg in each hand and chatting happily. Seeing that the students had returned, Ji Sha said lazily, from now on, she will be your class monitor. Oh right, little girl, what's your name? Instructor G, my name is Yin Chujio. Yin Chujio will be the class monitor of the Huang class from now on. If you have any problems, just look for her. Now, go back to your dormitories and get some rest. Tomorrow, we will attend the opening ceremony at Tianyuan Square. You are not allowed to be late. Dismissed, said Ji Sha as he left after dismissing everyone. The students of the Huang class looked at Ji Sha's back with a dumbfounded expression. Then, they looked at the three instructors who were still reminding the students about some details. They felt that their future student lives were bleak. What are you all thinking about? All of you, be more energetic. What's wrong with the Huang class? Do you know what the color yellow represents in the secular world? It represents the supreme imperial power. Therefore, there is nothing to be dejected about being assigned to the Huang class. Believe me, with me as the class monitor, I will definitely be able to lead you from one glorious victory to another, Yun Chujio said loudly as she jumped on top of a rock. Class monitor, although what you said is quite exciting, but as you can see, our treatment cannot be compared to those three classes. The instructor is so random and lives in such a remote place. How can we compare to them? The instructors are so random. How is our instructor so random? I feel that our instructor choosing me to be the class monitor is the most typical thing one can do. This is called delegation of authority. This shows that our instructor is open-minded, knows people well, and has wisdom. The corners of everyone's eyes twitched. Fuck, are you praising Instructor G or yourself? Yun Chujio glanced at everyone, then, she said, also, what's wrong with our dormitory location? Are we cultivators afraid of such a tiny bit of difficulty? Spiritual power needs to be cultivated, and so do movement techniques. The Academy has provided us with the opportunity to train our movement techniques for free. What else do you have to complain about? Most importantly, the path of cultivation is fraught with difficulties and dangers. How could a mere division of classes defeat you? Is your ability to withstand blows is so weak? Where there's a will, there's a way. If we can pass the 1 in 10,000 test to enter the Tianyuan Academy, it means that our aptitude and talent are first class. Suffering will only increase our chances of success, only by constantly challenging ourselves will we reach new heights. Tell me loudly, do you have the confidence? Yes. 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 The class monitor is right, what is this little bit of difficulty? We will be able to turn the tables. That's right. So what if we are from the Huang class? Isn't it just living further away? Let's just treat it as training for our movement techniques. As long as we work hard, there will be no difficulties that can defeat us. Yun Chujio looked at everyone with satisfaction as they transformed from defeated kittens into lions that went on the offensive. Then, she jumped down from the rock and waved her hands. Let's go. Follow your class monitor to the dormitory. The other three students and instructors were dumbfounded as they watched the students of the Huang class leave in high spirits. A thought flashed through the minds of the three instructors at the same time. Fuck. If they knew that Yun Chujio was such a smooth talker, they would get her into our class no matter what. With such a class monitor, we would be able to save ourselves a lot of trouble. Chapter 1021, the dormitory of the Huang class. The three instructors had also chosen a class monitor from their respective classes. However, they might have had preconceived ideas. No matter how they looked at it, their words were not as pleasing to the ear as Yunchuji's. The three instructors could only comfort themselves. No matter how glib one's mouth was, it was useless. They still had to rely on their spiritual power to speak. The Huang class' lack of aptitude and talent was obvious. No matter how hard they struggled, they could not surpass them. At the time, Yunchujiu had already brought the Huang class students to the Huang class dormitory area. Before everyone arrived, they first passed by the dormitories of the other three classes. When they saw their own dormitory, their mood was smothered by a wet blanket. Needless to say, the dormitory of the Tian class was exquisite and neat. Although the conditions of the D class and the Xian class were slightly worse than the Tian class, it was still acceptable. But what the hell were these rows of dormitories that looked like haunted houses? Yunchujiu coughed dryly. Didn't you hear that there hasn't been a Huang class in the past few years? So it's understandable that this dormitory is a little dilapidated. From a different perspective, this is also a good thing. We can change the courtyard into the appearance that we like according to our own ideas. Things that can be solved with spirit stones are not a problem. Doesn't the academy have handymen? Just let them clean it up. This is not a problem at all. Most of the people in the Huang class were people who followed Yunchujiu in the fourth round of the test. Each of them received 10,000 high-grade spirit stones for free. Therefore, when they heard Yunchujiu's words, they felt that it was reasonable. Yunchujiu simply assigned a few students to be in charge of contacting the handyman who repaired the house. When the time came, they would settle the payment together. The jade tokens of the Tianyuan Academy also functioned as a voice transmission talisman. This was very easy to contact, but it was only limited to the area of the Tianyuan Academy. Not long after, a few dozen handymen came over. After negotiating the price, the handymen began to clean and repair the dormitories. The dormitories looked extremely dilapidated, but in reality, it was only because no one had cleaned them for many years. After half a day, the dormitories looked completely new. Yunchujiu asked the students with wood spirit roots to help grow some vines and flowers in the various courtyards. Immediately, these dormitories looked more lively. Yunchujiu asked everyone to hand over 1,000 high-grade spirit stones. Other than paying for the repair of the houses, the rest of the spirit stones were kept by her. It was euphemistically called the class fee. In the future, if there was a need, they would withdraw the spirit stones from that source of funds. Everyone did not have any objections. After all, this money was originally given to them by Yunchujiu. If she wanted to be greedy, she would not have given it to them in the first place, right? Students of the Huang class, look at our clean and beautiful dormitory now. Think about the dilapidated scene we saw half a day ago. Doesn't it look much better now? Sometimes, when you encounter a difficult situation, as long as you put in a little effort, you can turn around a terrible situation. The premise is that you must never give up, and you must face it optimistically and positively. Alright, now let's move in according to the student numbers. Yunchujiu did not forget to say a few motivational words for these people at all times. Yunchujiu's student number was very unfortunate, it was still number 250. She already had no strength to complain, so 250 it was. According to the order, she was placed in the last dormitory, which was the furthest from the center of the academy. Not far from her dormitory was the courtyard wall of Tianyuan Academy. Seeing this, some students took the initiative to offer to exchange their numbers with Yunchujiu. Yunchujiu waved her hands and rejected their kind intentions. Chapter 1022, Yunchujiu's dormitory. Feng Ming and the other two student numbers were close to Yunchujiu's, so their dormitories were also close to each other. As soon as Yunchujiu entered the courtyard, Feng Ming and the other two came over. Junior sister Little Jiu, aren't you the most afraid of trouble? Why did you take the title of class monitor? Feng Ming asked in confusion. I naturally have my own selfish motives. Strength is important, but connections are also very important. We are not familiar with the people in Tianyuan Academy, so we must build our own network of people. Although the spiritual power of the students from the Huang class is not comparable to the other 3 classes, they are more obedient. If I can take them as my own, it would be very helpful. Even if I graduate in the future, I might still be able to use them. And Feng had advised Yun Chujio, so she decided to train a group of her own subordinates. Feng Ming and the other 2 looked at each other. How did junior sister Little Jio's brain work so fast? When we went to listen to the other instructors explain matters related to enrollment, she managed to get the title of class monitor. Moreover, she thought of everything after graduation. People really can't be compared to people. In the future, we will be able to bask in the glory of junior sister Little Jio. Feng Ming and the other 2 told Yun Chujio about some of the things that they had heard and then returned to their respective dorms. After Feng Ming and the others left, Yun Chujio carefully sized up her new dormitory. This dorm was slightly more spacious than the one in the Spirit Radiance sect. The room had a study room and a bedroom, and there was also a separate living room. It was a very complete setup. There were also newly grown vines and flowers in the courtyard, making the place seem like it was full of vitality. Yun Chujio felt that the only thing missing in the courtyard was a set of stone tables and chairs. It would be even better if there was a swing. Yun Chujio's eyes lit up. I had the 2 whiskers from the illusionary electric eel in my storage bag, which could be used to make a swing. Yun Chujio took out a set of stone tables and chairs from her storage ring. Then, she hammered out a crude swing and eyed it with satisfaction. After activating the isolation array in the courtyard, she let out the 3 silly munchkins. Little Black Bird stared at them with his green bean-like eyes. There are no big trees here. I have a complaint. Master, if there are no trees here, where will I land in the future? As the vines and flowers were easier to grow, there were no trees in the courtyard. Yun Chujio asked Furry to get 3 low-grade coral pearl fruit trees from the Great Void Mystic Realm. Not only were the crowns of the tree larger, but the fruit was also delicious. Yun Chujio dug a few deep pits and planted the 3 coral pearl fruit trees inside. Afraid that they would not survive, Yun Chujio shamelessly poured a little liquid from the strange grass and diluted it before watering the roots of the trees. Not long after, Yun Chujio was stunned to find that the 3 coral pearl fruit trees were not only alive but also blooming. Fortunately, the concentration of the liquid was very low. After they bloomed, the 3 coral pearl fruit trees did not have any other significant changes. Yun Chujio then heaved a sigh of relief. If the changes were too great, she would be forced to bring them back to the Great Void Mystic Realm. After a good night's sleep, the students of the Huang class gathered at the entrance of Yun Chujio's courtyard early the next morning. In just one day, Yun Chujio had become the backbone of their class. As soon as Yun Chujio left the courtyard, a student asked curiously, "Class monitor, where did you get the coral pearl fruit tree in your courtyard?" "I found it when I was training in the past. I like eating this fruit, so I dug up the roots and put them in my storage ring. I planted it yesterday. I guess the spiritual energy in the Tianyuan continent is much denser than in the Azure Mystic continent, so the 3 trees that were in bud bloomed overnight." The corners of everyone's eyes twitched. No one would dig up a tree so casually. These 3 trees looked at least 1,000 years old. The roots below must have dug very deep. It must have taken a lot of effort to dig them out. In order to eat, our class monitor was also quite hard-working. Chapter 1023, The Imposing Aura of the Huang class. After Yun Chujio activated the locks in the courtyard, she was escorted by the crowd towards the plaza of Tianyuan Academy. Along the way, the large group of students attracted the attention of the crowd as expected. Other than during group activities, the rest of the time, the students of Tianyuan Academy all usually traveled in groups of 3 to 5. They had never seen an entire class of people move together. After some students saw the clothes of Yun Chujio and the others, they discussed, so it's those first-grade rookies from the Huang class. I guess they are too timid and dare not move around alone. What you said makes sense. Their spiritual power is too low, so they think that they have the advantage in numbers. They are really naive. The little girl they are surrounding is very pretty. However, she is only at the first level of the spirit sect. How can she be so popular? Didn't you hear them call her class monitor? She is probably the class monitor of the Huang class. They let a little girl at the first level of the spirit sect be the class monitor. Those people are useless. You guys don't know yet, right? That little girl's name is Yun Chujio, and she ascended from the Azure Mystic Continent. I heard that she obtained first place in the first 2 rounds of the test. In the 3rd round of the test, it was because she destroyed the array core that the 4th round of the test was conducted. In the 4th round of the test, I heard that this little girl even did business inside and earned several million high-grade spirit stones. What? Really? How is this possible? Isn't that little girl only at the first level of the spirit sect? How could she have achieved all that? I heard that this little girl is an old friend of the palace mistress. I reckon that the palace mistress didn't help her much, so she took advantage of this opportunity to obtain such results. If not for this, why would she be assigned to the Huang class? When the Huang class students saw that everyone was pointing at them, the inferiority complex and depression in their hearts surged up once again. They could not even walk naturally. Yun Chujio frowned. Straighten your chests and stomach. Where is your energy and spirit? We only entered Tianyuan Academy after going through all those hurdles. We should be sitting upright with pride. There is nothing to be ashamed of. All of you, straighten up. After Yun Chujio finished speaking, she walked to the front with her head held high and chest puffed out. The imposing manner from her body made people forget that she was only at the first level of the spirit sect. When the students from the Huang class saw this, they also imitated Yun Chujio. They raised their heads, straightened their chests, sucked their stomach in, and walked forward without looking sideways. Perhaps it was because of their psychological effects, but they felt that they were not much weaker than those gossiping students. Thus, everyone saw the freshmen of the Huang class walk into Tianyuan Square with a majestic aura under the lead of a little girl. Although the spiritual power of the Huang class was the lowest, they had a different kind of spirit compared to the students of the other 3 classes. They had vigor and unyielding strength. After Yun Chujio led the Huang class to Tianyuan Square, she did not let everyone sit on the ground. Instead, they sat in a square formation, in a row, and in a diagonal line. From the aura, they were able to suppress the other 3 classes. The other 3 classes' students also subconsciously straightened their posture. They began to align themselves according to the Huang class and gradually formed a square formation. When the academy's higher-ups and the instructors arrived, they saw the 3 square formations of the new students seated below them. They then looked at the old students who were sitting in a mess beside them and thought to themselves, although this batch of new students had average talent, their discipline was still pretty good. Especially the square formation of the Huang class. It gave them an imposing aura just from sitting in formation. Furthermore, this kind of aura made it very easy for people to overlook their low spirit energy. Chapter 1024, Asleep at the opening ceremony. The admission ceremony of the Tianyuan Academy started with a speech by the dean, Huangfu Zhongheng. He gave a brief introduction speech, followed by a speech by Qin Mingzhu on behalf of the senior students. After a long speech by the representative of the seniors, the final speech was given by the representatives of the new students. The new students were represented by Gu Mochen from the Tianyuan class. He was 18 years old and was at the 7th level of the spirit sect. His appearance was also unworldly. The moment he stepped onto the stage, he received the adoration of some of the female students. Gu Mochen's speech was very short. The gist of it was to say that he was honored to enter Tianyuan Academy and express his determination to cultivate diligently and abide by the school rules. Yun Chuzhou listened to the speech very seriously at the beginning. Halfway through, she felt drowsy. There was no novelty at all. Why could they not speak about things like introducing which dishes in the cafeteria were delicious, or perhaps if there were some good treasures in Tianyuan Academy? Finally, the instructor who presided over the event announced the end of the opening ceremony. When the seniors and the freshmen of the other 3 classes heard that the ceremony was over, they immediately scattered, leaving in a swarm. Only the Huang class students still sat upright on the spot. It was not that they did not want to move, but when they saw their class monitor still sitting upright, they naturally thought they should not get up. How could they know that Yun Chuzhou had already fallen asleep? Dean Huangfu and the other instructors did not understand the situation. They thought that the students of the Huang class wanted to let their instructors leave first, so they could not help but exclaim in admiration. Ji Sha, I didn't expect your Huang class to be so courteous. It seems that letting you be the instructor in charge of the Huang class was the right move. One of the instructors said with a hint of ridicule. That's right. Although the Huang class is a little lacking in talent, their spirit and energy are not bad. It's really rare that they didn't give up on themselves. I thought that they would still need some time to recover. Another instructor also sighed. Ji Sha rubbed his nose and looked at the little girl at the front of the square formation. I reckon that this is all because of this little girl. Needless to say, I originally just wanted to slack off. I didn't think that I would actually find such a rare talent. However, why do I feel like that little girl is asleep? Feng Ming saw that Yun Chuzhou had not made a sound. He glanced at her from the corner of his eyes and the corner of his eyes twitched. He gently tugged on Yun Chuzhou's sleeve. Only then did Yun Chuzhou wake up. She looked up and saw that there was no one else around. Only then did she stand up and pretend to say, very good. I'm very satisfied with everyone's performance. The class will officially start tomorrow. To facilitate communication in the future, I've decided to divide our Huang class into 10 groups according to the student number. The student number is 1 to 25, and so on. Then, each group will choose a leader. Soon, the leaders of the 10 groups were chosen. The 10th group, which was Yun Chuzhou's group, made Feng Ming the leader. The first group is responsible for gathering information about the canteen and the handyman's office. The second group will gather information about the courses. The third group, the various tests and trials. The fourth group, information about the dean and the instructors. The fifth group is responsible for gathering information about the senior students. The sixth is responsible for information about the other 3 classes. The 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th groups are responsible for gathering information about the outside world of the Tianyuan Academy. The 4 of you will be divided into areas according to your respective regions. Chapter 1025, Old Ding. When everyone heard Yun Chuzhou's words, they were all at a loss. The contents of some of the groups were understandable. After all, they were all related to their studies. However, for those in groups 7, 8, 9, and 10, what was the use of gathering information from the outside world? Yun Chuzhou glanced at them. Do you think that it's unnecessary to get information from the outside world? We only have 5 years of study in Tianyuan Academy at most. What about after graduation? If you don't make any plans now, do you want to go out blind and oblivious? Or has your family already arranged a way out for you? Even if they have arranged something for you, would you be willing to be blindly led by the nose, or would you rather be in control of your own life? Everyone was shocked. Indeed, they did not think so far ahead. They had just entered the school, how could they have thought about what would happen after graduation? Hearing Yun Chuzhou's words, they were shocked to realize how short-sighted they were. To think that though they were born and raised in the Tianyuan continent and had a sense of superiority, they were not even close to the class monitor's level. It was not just their brains too but also their plans for the future. Alright, since there are no objections, each of you can go to your team leaders to discuss the next step. Yun Chujio waved her hands at everyone, then, she eagerly chased after Ji Sha. Instructor Ji, I have something to report to you about the class. Ji Sha was walking back with the other instructors when he heard Yun Chujius shout his name. He had no choice but to stop. Not long after, Yun Chujio hopped over and said, Instructor Ji, do you think our Huang class performed well today? Ji Sha nodded. If not for old man Xiao, he would not have been bothered to be a responsible instructor. Now that he had the help of such a little girl, he naturally could not ask for more. Instructor Ji, since you are very satisfied with my work, then what about the roast chicken you promised me? Yun Chujia's eyes lit up as she looked at Ji Sha. Ji Sha coughed dryly, feeling a little guilty. I was delayed by something yesterday, so I'm going to find old Ding with your request now. Instructor Ji, I'll go with you. It just so happens that I want to thank old Ding in person. Ah, Senior Ding. Yun Chujio inexplicably thought of that catchphrase, an old Ding owes me 2 balls. I said 3 days, he said 4 days. Ji Sha felt guilty and could only nod his head in agreement. The two of them proceeded to the canteen. Tianyuan Academy had nearly 6,000 students and instructors, so Tianyuan Academy's cafeteria was built to cater to a large number of people. Yun Chujio followed Ji Sha directly to the back kitchen. The moment Ji Sha entered the back kitchen, he pulled his neck and shouted, Old Ding! Old Ding! Not long after, an old man who reeked of alcohol sauntered over. Didn't you just take away 30 roasted chickens a few days ago? Why are you looking for me again? Yun Chujio sized up the old man. Although the old man's clothes were clean, the strong smell of alcohol on his body made it seem as if he had been soaked in a wine vat. Yun Chujio felt that Ji Sha and this old Ding were the same. Sloppy drunkards who did not want to improve themselves. Old Ding, what else can I do with you? Of course, I'm here for your roast chicken. Make me 100 roast chickens and a few dozen pig knuckles. 100 roast chickens. Pig knuckles. You son of a bitch, didn't you just blackmail me? Are you trying to show off? Get lost. I don't have time. Old Ding looked impatient, he chased the two away like he was waving away a fly. Chapter 1026, 1000-Year Wine. Ji Sha gritted his teeth and took out a wine gourd from his storage ring. He then asked Yun Chujio, Little girl, do you know what's in this gourd? Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. It should be a top-notch spirit wine, right? You're really smart, little girl. This is the 1000-year wine that I obtained with great difficulty. This is brewed by the golden purple-eyed ape. It's a treasure that can only be encountered by chance but not sought after. Before Ji Sha could finish his words, old Ding was so enraptured by the wine that his saliva almost flowed out. Ji Sha, brother, your matters are my matters. Isn't it just 100 roasted chickens? 200 wouldn't be a problem. However, can you let me try a cup of that 1000-year wine? Just a small cup, is that all right? Ji Sha curled his lips. Just now, I recall someone seemed to have said something about a bastard, something about being arrogant. Little girl, let's go. There are many other skilled masters in the canteen. I'll lead you to them. Old Ding immediately became anxious. Little girl, I'm not bragging but no one in the Tianyuan continent is better at cooking than me. My roasted chicken not only tastes delicious but also increases one's spiritual power. Many people would kill for it. You must cherish this opportunity. Yun Chujio was very smart. She knew that Ji Sha was taking advantage of her. She said with a smile, Senior Ding, I'm sure you're good at cooking. But you just scolded Instructor Ji. Don't you have something to show for it? Old man Ding cursed in his heart. This little girl looked young, but she was also a fucking sly fox. He could only grit his teeth and say, "Ji Sha, I admit defeat this time. I'll get you 500 roasted chickens, okay?" Yun Chujio secretly poked him and said, "Add some pig elbows and pig's trotters to that. It would be even more perfect if there were chicken feet or something like that." Old Ding did not know where this little girl came from. Although he wanted to sew her mouth shut in his heart, he kept his cool. He could only add, "Okay, an additional 100 pig elbows and pig trotters it is. This should be enough, right?" Ji Sha saw that old Ding was so angry that he gritted his teeth, then, he smiled and said, "Brother Ding, you are too polite. I originally planned to give you a taste of this 1,000-year wine. After all, you are an expert in wine tasting. If this wine is drunk by someone else, it would be a waste of God's gift." Old Ding snorted coldly and did not say anything. He took out an exquisite wine gourd from his storage ring and handed it to Ji Sha. Ji Sha poured out a little bit of spirit wine from his wine gourd and placed it into Old Ding's wine gourd. It was about the size of a small wine cup. Old Ding took the wine gourd and sniffed it. He sighed and said, "Good wine. This is very good wine. Come and pick up the goods 3 days later." After Old Ding said that, he angrily stomped back into the kitchen. Yun Chujio asked Ji Sha curiously, "Instructor Ji Sha, that not even enough for one sip? Why did that Old Ding agree to cook roast chicken for us?" "Little girl, you should know that a 1,000-year wine is different from other spirit wines. Just a small cup tastes like an entire jar of regular wine. Otherwise, do you think Old Ding will give in?" Ji Sha said proudly. Yun Chujio's eyes lit up. Oh my, that 1,000-year drink sounded interesting. The smell of it was very tempting. Unfortunately, the gigolo did not allow her to drink. Otherwise, she would have thought of a way to get a cup to try it for herself. Ji Sha saw Yun Chujio's eyes twinkle and his heart sank. This little girl had many schemes in her head. He had to be more careful in the future. He did not want her to trick him out of his treasured spirit wine. Chapter 1027, Swearing without actually swearing. Just as Ji Sha was on guard against Yun Chujio, a few instructors walked towards him. One of them was the instructor of the Tian class, Mo Hanxuan. One of the instructors with triangular eyes glanced at Ji Sha, then, he said to Mo Hanxuan loudly so Ji Sha could hear everything, "Brother Mo, I heard that this year's freshmen have set up a Huang class. The one leading the class is still that good-for-nothing Ji Sha." Mo Hanxuan had a haughty attitude. He faintly nodded as a response to that triangular-eyed instructor. That triangular-eyed instructor raised his volume. "Which of our Tianyuan Academy's instructors aren't at least at the cultivation level of Spirit Paragon? Some people just stand in the latrine all day doing nothing. Their cultivation has already fallen to the 8th level of the Spirit Saint realm, yet they still have the face to stay in Tianyuan Academy. They are really thick-skinned." Yun Chujio felt Ji Sha's entire aura turn gloomy. He was like a wolf that had been injured by a hunter. Although there was hatred and discontent in him, he did not have the strength to contend with the other party. "Instructor Ji Sha, can we release our spiritual pets while in the Tianyuan Academy?" Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and asked Ji Sha. Ji Sha was stunned and replied casually, "They can only be released when they are in their own courtyard or during a battle. Usually, they are not allowed to run around the academy." "Ah. Then why did I hear a dog barking? Could it be that someone broke the rules and released the dog?" Yun Chujio asked curiously. Ji Sha was stunned for a moment before he laughed out loud, "You're right, I do hear a dog barking. Let's go and report it to the Academy's disciplinary office. Naturally, someone will come and punish the owner then beat the dog." When the triangular-eyed instructor heard Yun Chujio and Ji Sha, he was instantly enraged. "You student! Which class are you from? How dare you say such malicious words in violation of the Academy's rules? Follow me immediately to the disciplinary office to accept your punishment according to the Academy rules. Yun Chujio said innocently, Instructor, which of my words were malicious? Who did I say such malicious words to? Can't I even scold a barking dog? Does the dog count as a student or instructor of our academy? You. The triangular-eyed instructor stuttered, but Yun Chujio's words were watertight. He could not find any flaws. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. If you want to criticize a student next time, you'd better have real evidence before you say anything. Otherwise, people will think that you're bullying a student. Yun Chujio said with a smile. The triangular-eyed instructor was so angry that his face turned red, but he could not squeeze out another word. Yun Chujio saw the situation and said to Ji Sha, Instructor Ji, let's go. This instructor's eyesight and hearing are most likely not very good, or he has some problems with his comprehension. I don't know how he became an instructor. Could it be that Tianyuan Academy's requirements for accepting instructors are so low? It's puzzling. The corners of Ji Sha's mouth curled up. Naturally, he knew that Yun Chujio was venting her anger on his behalf. Let's go. The triangular-eyed instructor looked at the backs of the two people and was so angry that he gritted his teeth. Who is that smelly girl? Why haven't I seen her before? Mo Hanshue said, Instructor Ma, that's the new student this year. Her name is Yun Chujio and she is the class monitor of the Huang class. That little girl is very good with words, but her spiritual power is a little low. Otherwise, she would have made a good seedling. Yun Chujio. What kind of background does she have? Instructor Ma was secretly resentful in his heart. She dared to contradict me like this. I will definitely teach her a lesson. It is said that she is the daughter of the palace mistress' old friend, who ascended from the Azure Mystic Continent. I have not heard of any other news, Mo Hanshuen said indifferently. Chapter 1028, The class monitor is here. When Instructor Ma heard that Yun Chujio was the daughter of an old friend of the palace mistress, he felt some fear in his heart. If that was the case, then he would not be able to find trouble with her openly. He would need to use some underhanded means to do so. A little girl. He only needed to do little to make her suffer. To dare to offend him, Ma Minghua, she was simply courting death. Instructor Ma gritted his teeth as he watched the two walk off. After walking for some distance, Instructor Ji Sha sighed. Little girl, there's no need for you to offend that Ma Minghua just because of me. He's the most petty person in the academy and will definitely find trouble with you in the future. Yun Chujio's small face was very serious. Instructor Ji, an instructor for a day, is a father for life. You're my instructor, how can I allow others to insult you? Moreover, the path of cultivation is already extremely dangerous, we cannot be submissive just because we are afraid of others taking revenge. You can rest assured, I am the only one who will harm others, no one else will harm me. If that Ma Minghua does not provoke me, it is fine. But if he does provoke me, I will let him see how powerful I am. Ji Sha was a little touched in his heart, but he also sighed. Indeed, a newborn calf is not afraid of a tiger. You are just a little girl at the first level of the spirit sect, and you are just a newcomer in the Tianyuan Academy, how can you possibly defeat Ma Minghua? It seemed that he needed to thicken his skin and ask those old fellows for help. He could not just watch the little girl suffer the wrath of Ma Minghua because of him. Yun Chujio did not know what went through Ji Sha's mind. After the two of them parted ways, Yun Chujio was originally planning to wander around when she heard her identity jade plate shake. After she sent her spiritual sense in, she heard Feng Ming's anxious voice. Junior sister Little Jiu, we've encountered some trouble. We were blocked by some seniors in the Tian class dormitory area and they wanted us to pay them filial piety money. Yun Chujio frowned. Filial piety money? Fuck, they were dreaming. They dared to take advantage of her little brothers. They were tired of living. Senior brother Feng Ming, wait for me for a moment. I'll be there soon. After saying that, Yun Chuzhou no longer took her time. Instead, she quickly jumped towards the Tian class dormitory. Some of the students they met along the way saw a blur flying towards the Tian class dormitory district. They could not help but click their tongues. What a fast movement technique. That must be one of the top 100 students on the roll of prodigies. That technique was too fast. In only 15 minutes, Yun Chuzhou had arrived at the dormitory district of the Tian class. As expected, the students of the Huang class all stood there with faces full of anger. In front of them stood dozens of senior students dressed in second-grade Tian class attire. Each of them looked arrogant, as they formed a row of lines that blocked the path of the students of the Huang class. Feng Ming and a few other group leaders were negotiating with them, but it was clear that the other party did not buy it. He arrogantly said, either pay the spirit stones or kowtow. Otherwise, you can forget about returning to your dormitory. Seniors, aren't you afraid of violating the school rules by doing this? One of the students said angrily. School rules? Did we beat you up? Or scold you? Is this path not for all students to use? How does us standing here get in the way of the school rules? A triangular-eyed senior said arrogantly. Yun Chuzhou cursed in her heart. Damn it, why were all the bastards she met today triangular-eyed? Were they all related? Yun Chuzhou pretended to cough twice. When the Huang class students turned around and saw Yun Chuzhou, they immediately cheered happily. Class monitor. Class monitor, you're here. That's great. The class monitor is here. Chapter 1029, Beat Up the Second-Year Seniors. When the students of the Huang class saw Yun Chuzhou, and their expressions immediately brightened. With Yun Chuzhou around, they all seemed to sprouted a backbone. They were also puzzled. The class monitor was obviously younger than them, and her spiritual power was not that high either, yet did her presence make people feel very at ease? After the dozens of second-year students of the Tian class saw Yun Chuzhou, they curled their lips in disdain. The triangular-eyed senior said arrogantly, Yo, your Huang class is really useless. You actually let such a little girl be the class monitor. Little girl, you came at the right time. According to the rules, you have to hand over the money to us senior students as a gift. Each of you has to pay 100 high-grade spirit stones. Otherwise, you won't be able to pass through here today. Yun Chuzhou walked in front of the students of the Huang class and sized up the students of the second-year Sky class. All of them were arrogant and had faces that begged to be beaten. Seniors, please move aside. We just want to go back to the dormitory. Yun Chuzhou said lightly. The triangular-eyed senior pouted. As I said, you have to pay the spirit stones or kowtow. Otherwise, you can forget about going back to the dormitory. No negotiations allowed, eh? Yun Chuzhou still asked indifferently. Negotiations? Junior sisters, you can accompany us and say a few soft words. We can waive the payment for you, but the male students have to pay. Not a single piece can be missing. The triangular-eyed senior eyed Yun Chuzhou with ill intentions. This little girl is quite pretty. Yun Chuzhou snorted coldly and turned to look at the Huang class students. 6 against 1, do you have the confidence to beat them up? Class monitor, we are, but fighting is prohibited in the academy. If we are found out, we'll be punished. One of the students said in a low voice. Fighting? We are just asking for advice from the seniors. Moreover, they are the ones who took the initiative to look for us to spar. How is that fighting? Let's fight together. Fuck, if they dare to bully our Huang class, we will teach them a lesson. I will bear the consequences alone. Beat them all up. Yun Chujio waved her hands as she took the lead and shot a bolt of lightning towards the triangular-eyed senior. The triangular-eyed senior did not expect the little girl in front of him to be so bold as to resort to violence up at the slightest disagreement. Moreover, what the hell was she using? Lightning? Purple lightning? Fuck. That little girl had a thunder root spirit. The triangular-eyed senior was caught off guard. When he came to his senses, he only had time to dodge at the last minute. However, his hair was burned. He screamed and used his hands to put out the fire on his head. When the other students of the Huang class saw that Yun Chujio had made a move, they did not hold back. They had suffered for a long time and already burned with anger. They roared and pounced on the second-year students of the Huang class. The second-year students of the Huang class were dumbfounded. They did not expect that the students of the Huang class would dare to make a move. After a short while, they were all beaten up by the students of the Huang class. Although their spiritual power was much higher than the students from the Huang class, they could not compete with the larger number of students from the Huang class. Moreover, every one of them vented their frustrations on them. The second-year students from the Tian class shouted while resisting, "Stop! Stop! If you fight privately, you will be expelled. Fuck you. I've had enough. If I'm expelled, so be it. I'll beat you to a pulp first, you bastard." "Right. Beat him up. Didn't you tell us to kneel? I'll make you kneel instead." Chapter 1030, Are you satisfied with this sparring session? Crazy. All of you are crazy. The second-year students from the Tian class were on the verge of a mental breakdown. When they had just entered the school, they had also been blackmailed by the seniors of the higher grades. Back then, they had all swallowed their anger and handed over the money. How could they dare to resist? They had not expected that these students from the Huang class would not only dare to not hand over the money but also dare to beat them up. They must have gone crazy. The commotion was getting louder and louder. Many students from the dormitory district came out to watch, but they were only there to enjoy the show. Those who were there never felt that it was a big deal. Some people even shouted and cheered from the side. The second-year students from the Tian class were soon all beaten up and bruised. They lay on the ground and wailed like ghosts and wolves. Yun Chujio carried a large kitchen knife and walked to the triangular-eyed senior. "Senior, I wonder if you are satisfied with this sparring match?" The triangular-eyed senior's hair had been burned off, and his face was covered in soot. His uniform was also torn and tattered. He gritted his teeth and said, "Damn girl. You dare to gang up on seniors in public? Just wait to be expelled." Yun Chujio held the large kitchen knife and rubbed the triangular-eyed senior's bald head. "Senior, you are wrong. We are obviously sparring. When did we gang up on each other? We previously agreed that if any side loses, they would have to pay the winner 10,000 high-grade spirit stones. Now that you have lost, shouldn't you fulfill your promise? You are spouting nonsense. When did we say that?" The triangular-eyed senior was about to go crazy from anger. Yun Chujio held the large kitchen knife and gently cut the triangular-eyed senior's face. Immediately, fresh blood flowed. The triangular-eyed senior was in so much pain that he cried like a ghost and howled like a wolf. Yun Chujio smiled and said, "If you are willing to make a bet, you must admit defeat. Quickly take out 10,000 high-grade spirit stones, or I will use your face as a canvas with my knife." The triangular-eyed senior angrily scolded, "Stupid girl, don't even think about it. Just you wait, I won't forgive you." Yun Chujio curled the corners of her mouth and then cut the triangular-eyed senior's face again. The triangular-eyed senior was in so much pain that he almost fainted. "Stupid girl. Do you know who I am? I am Ma Sheng, and my uncle is instructor Ma Minghua. Just you wait. I will get my uncle to expel you. I have heard of those who can only rely on their father, and now there are still those who only on their uncles too. Cut the crap, hand over the spirit stones, or I will continue to draw on your face. Yun Chujio said fiercely, and the big kitchen knife in her hand was about to continue drawing. Stop. Stop. I'll give it to you. The triangular-eyed senior was terrified. A wise man should cut his losses while on the back foot. This stupid girl was extremely bold. If I do not pay her, she would continue to carve up my face. I'll pay her first and deal with her later. The triangular-eyed senior took the lead, and the other second-grade students in the Tian class also gave in one after another. They each offered 10,000 upper-grade spirit stones to Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio then said with a smile, "Why didn't you do it earlier? We welcome all seniors to come and spar with us frequently in the future. However, the next time we raise the price, it will at least cost 50,000 upper-grade spirit stones." The triangular-eyed senior and the others were filled with hatred in their hearts. Damn girl, just you wait. There won't be a next time. If you gang up on us in public again, you will definitely be expelled from Tianyuan Academy. Seniors, we are a little tired. We will take our leave now. Thank you for the sparring lesson. We will see you later. Yun Chujio waved her hands and led the Huang class students away. The triangular-eyed senior waited for Yun Chujio and the others to leave before he gritted his teeth and said, "Let's go. We will go to the disciplinary department and report this incident." The others also bared their teeth and shouted, "That's right. Let's go to the disciplinary department and report this. Those people from the Huang class need to be severely punished, especially their leader Yun Chujio. She must be expelled." Chapter 1031, Smoke and Mirrors, Class Monitor. What if the law enforcement department wants to punish us? What we are doing is against the rules of the academy, especially since you injured that triangular-eyed student Ma Sheng with a kitchen knife. That's right, class monitor, quickly think of something. Otherwise, I'm afraid we will all be punished. Yun Chujio waved her hands. Don't worry, it will be fine. When the time comes, all you have to say is that they wanted to spar with us. Leave the rest to me. Everyone was skeptical, but there was nothing they could do. They could only return to their dormitories with their hearts in their mouths. Soon, the voice of the Law Enforcement Division's law enforcement tutor rang out from everyone's identity jade medallion, asking everyone to immediately head to the Law Enforcement Division to be investigated. Everyone immediately panicked and quickly gathered outside Yun Chujio's courtyard. When they saw Yun Chujio, the nervousness in their hearts instantly turned into confusion. They saw their class monitor with disheveled hair and mud on her clothes. She looked as miserable as she could be. What are you all standing there for? Quickly follow my lead. Make yourselves look as miserable as possible. Yun Chujio said slyly. Everyone was stunned for a moment. They immediately understood how their class monitor was going to fight against the allegations. Therefore, they began to hurt themselves with all their strength. Some even slapped their faces a few times for the sake of maintaining the illusion. Their faces immediately swelled up. The corner of Yun Chujio's eyes twitched. Damn, these guys were too dedicated. She couldn't bear to be so ruthless towards herself. The road in front of Yun Chujio's courtyard suddenly became very clean because, well, the dust had been rolled onto their bodies. Some people had an idea and kicked each other a few times. There were many footprints on their bodies, making them look even more presentable. Yun Chujio looked at everyone with satisfaction. Then, she gave everyone a few packets of chili noodles. Not long after, all of their eyes were red and tears streamed down their faces. Very good. After we leave the dormitory area, all of you howl for me. Howl as miserably as you can. Don't mention anything about seniors or the Tian class, lest you attract other grudges. Just Howlin mentioned that triangular-eyed student Ma Xing, saying that he used his power to bully others and that he relied on his uncle Ma Minghua to not keep his word. After the sparring, he still shamelessly went back on his word, and the most outrageous thing was that he even framed us by saying we ganged up on them. He even said that his uncle was a man of his word in Tianyuan Academy and that even Dean Huangfu had to listen to him. Yun Chuzhou thought to herself that Ma Minghua was obviously not a good person. Since that was the case, she would strike first and gain the upper hand. Killing two birds with one stone. She was simply too smart. Everyone in the Huang class looked at each other. Damn, this class monitor of theirs was really shrewd. No matter the outcome, that triangular-eyed teacher, Ma Xing's uncle, Ma Minghua, would be in trouble. Yun Chuzhou felt that everyone had dressed up enough, so she waved her hands and said, "Let's head to the law enforcement office." Yun Chuzhou walked at the front of the group, followed by the students from the Huang class. The group of people grandly left the dormitory area, and as soon as they stepped out, Yun Chuzhou waved her hands and began howling her sky-shaking screams. "Io! We're really in trouble. That Ma Xing took advantage of his uncle to bully us so badly. He kept saying that he wanted to spar with us. Who would have thought that he would beat us up so badly and even try to frame us, saying that we ganged up on them? How could a bunch of rookies like us have the guts to gang up on our seniors? We've really been wronged to death." That's right. That Ma Xing even said that his uncle, teacher Ma Minghua, has even more say than Dean Huangfu. He can do whatever he wants in the Tianyuan Academy and wants to expel all of us. That's too scary. That's right. He said that teacher Ma Minghua is the real power behind Tianyuan Academy. Even Dean Huangfu wouldn't dare to do anything to him, let alone the vice dean and class teachers. Chapter 1032, The Shameless Huang Class. Yun Chuzhou was very satisfied when she heard the miserable screams of the crowd. These people were quite talented. Even she almost believed their words. The Huang class was so big that it quickly attracted the attention of many people. Everyone's hearts were ignited by the flames of gossip. What the hell? What's going on? This is a freshman, right? Huang class. Why are all of them acting like beggars? What's going on? Ah, so they were beaten up by a senior from the Tian class. Ma Xing. I've heard of Ma Xing before. His aptitude isn't bad, but he's riding on the influence of his uncle, instructor Ma Minghua. He's pretty arrogant because of that. If he's the one who did this, then it makes sense. I've heard that there are a few students in his class who aren't on good terms with him. They've all asked him to get someone to secretly teach them a lesson. If they can't beat him, they'll get the instructor to put pressure on them. He's extremely cunning. I've heard that his uncle, Instructor Ma, is very good at manipulating people. Although it's not as exaggerated as what the Huang class students say, he's the most arrogant amongst the instructors. This time, Ma Xing is the villain who made the first complaint. I wonder if the disciplinary department will give his uncle face. I guess they will handle this fairly. There are more than 200 people in the Huang class. Each one of them has been beaten up so badly. Are we going to let uncle and nephew Ma Xing distort the truth? Yun Chuzhou overheard everyone's gossip and was delighted. It seemed that the triangle-eyed uncle and nephew had offended many people. That way, their chances of success today would be greatly increased. In the beginning, only about 200 people from the Huang class were crying and wailing as they walked towards the disciplinary department. However, for some unknown reason, more and more people followed tagged along. Some of the people who were usually bullied by Ma Xing had also joined the Huang class. Most of them were the onlookers who were watching the show. They continued to jeer, and half of Tianyuan Academy was alarmed by the noisy crowd. The crowd arrived at the disciplinary department in an imposing manner. Ma Xing was leading the second-year students from the Tian class to wait there aggressively. When they saw Yun Chujio and the others, they were instantly dumbfounded. Fuck. What's going on with these people? We didn't injure them, so why are they all in a worse state than us? Before Ma Sheng and the others could react, the people who received Yun Chujio's hint immediately cried out, "We beg the disciplinary department to decide for us." Yeah. We were bullied by that Ma Sheng. We agreed to have a duel, but he said that we beat them up and beat us to the ground. He also said that he has his uncle's support, and no one would care even if he beat us to death. He even said that he would get all of us expelled. He scared us to death. Ma Sheng was so angry that his triangular eyes were about to pop out. He pointed at Yun Chujio and the others and shouted angrily, You are slandering us. You were the one who attacked us first. My face was scratched by you, you stinky girl." Yun Chujio looked like she was in shock. "Senior, you have to be responsible for your words. Didn't you cut your face with your sword? You said that it was just a superficial wound, but it was healed with some muscle regeneration pills. You used it to frame us." "Yes. We all saw it. You were the one who cut yourself, but now you want to frame our class monitor. You are too despicable." "Exactly. You said that you can get our class monitor expelled with that wound. You are too sinister." Ma Sheng and the second-year students from the Tian class were dumbfounded. Holy shit. Was that person from the Huang class not a little too shameless? He changed black to white and spouted nonsense. Chapter 1033, About to hang themselves. Those onlookers did not know the truth. When they heard the Huang class students screaming their discontent, they all believed it and could not help but talk about it. "Emma, this Ma Sheng has put in a lot of effort to prank us. He even used such a sinister trick. Fortunately, there is a witness. Otherwise, he would have succeeded in framing us." Ma Sheng shouted angrily, "All of you shut the fuck up. Do you know what's going on? All of you are spouting lies here. Be careful, or you will also be punished by the Academy's rules." When those people heard Ma Sheng's words, their discussions grew louder. They also believed in Yun Chujio and the others' words. That Ma Sheng was too arrogant and despotic. Just as everyone was in discussion, a disciplinary instructor walked out. That instructor was also stunned when he saw the Huang class' miserable state. Didn't this Ma Sheng say that the Huang class had beaten them up? Why were the Huang class students even more miserable than them? Who had beaten who up? Yun Chujio made a hand gesture behind her back. Immediately, the Huang class students started crying and wailing. It was still the same story. Not only did they recount Ma Sheng's evil behavior, but they also implicated Ma Minghua. Instructor Qi usually had a good personal relationship with Ma Minghua. When he heard this, he frowned. "Silence. You have so many students in the Huang class. How could you all be injured by Ma Sheng and the others? This is clearly a setup. According to the rules of the Academy, if you frame and beat up your classmates, you will be given a demerit once. After 2 demerits, you will be expelled. Yun Chujio. If you have been found to have incited and bewitched your classmates, you will be expelled immediately." The students from the Huang class were stunned. Charged with a demerit once? If they were charged even once, it would be a blemish in their records. Many of the students who were charged once were no longer qualified for the Academy's evaluation. That would be a waste. However, compared to them, Yun Chujio's punishment was even heavier. She would be expelled immediately. Being expelled on the second day of school was too sullen. Just as everyone was in a daze, they heard Yun Chujio howl. Her shout scared Instructor Qi so much that he fell on his behind. "Oh my God! This is really unreasonable. I was clearly the one who was beaten and framed, but am forced to bear the crime. The Academy is so unfair. Students, are we just going to let this go after suffering such a huge grievance? Let's just hang ourselves at the entrance of the disciplinary department. After Yun Chujio spoke, she took out a rope from her storage ring and swiftly tied a long row of knots on a few trees at the entrance of the disciplinary department. Yun Chujio took out a chair and stood on it. She placed her small head into the knot, then, she said with grief and indignation, "Students, for the fairness of Tianyuan Academy and the justice of the world, today, we will sacrifice ourselves for others and hang ourselves at the entrance of the disciplinary department. In the future, our ghosts will help everyone seek justice. We will always keep an eye on them. If they bend the law for personal gain, our ghosts will not forgive them." The 10 team leaders saw Yun Chujius look and also took out chairs and other items from their storage rings and stood on them. They put their heads into the knot and said, "Class monitor is right. We would rather die than live like this. We were bullied, yet they still want to punish us. Where the fairness? Where is justice? We don't want to live anymore." The other students of the Huang class also shouted, "That's right. We don't want to live anymore either. Class monitor, there are only a few trees here. You guys go first, we will be there soon." Chapter 1034, Trouble at the Disciplinary Department. What are you doing? Get down quickly. Don't think that I will let you off just because you are threatening me like this. If you don't get down now, I will have someone forcefully expel you from Tianyuan Academy. When Instructor Chi saw that Yun Chujio and the others were actually going to commit suicide, he immediately panicked. He had often profited from the Ma family's uncle and nephew. If the matter were to blow up, it would be bad if it were exposed to the higher-ups. Yun Chujia's little head was swaying in the knot as she pointed at Instructor Chi. "Hey, Instructor Chi, what is the meaning of this? Are you trying to silence us? As a disciplinary instructor, you blamed us without even investigating the truth. Now, you don't even give us a chance to defend ourselves. I didn't think much of it at first, but you're so protective of that Ma Sheng. Could it be that you have some shady business with him? Or could it be that you have some shady business with Instructor Ma? Or maybe it's both." Instructor Chi's face turned red from Yun Chujia's words and the veins on his neck bulged. He retorted angrily from embarrassment, "Impudent. You dare to slander the instructor. Men, expel this Yun Chujio and these people from Tianyuan Academy immediately." Yun Chujio immediately howled, "Is there no one else in the disciplinary department who can mete out true justice? Are we going to let Instructor Chi ruin the fairness and justice of the disciplinary department? We've been wronged. Help. He's going to kill someone." The other people from the Huang class also shouted. Some of the surrounding students also joined in the jeers. They were usually punished by Instructor Chi, and they wanted nothing more than to embarrass him in their hearts. With such a huge commotion, it was only natural that many people were alarmed. A few more disciplinary instructors walked out from the disciplinary department. Originally, Instructor Chi was on duty today, so they did not intervene. However, seeing that the matter had got out of hand, they could only come out from the courtyard. Not only that, but the higher-ups of the Tianyuan Academy were also alarmed. Even Dean Huangfu personally rushed over. When Dean Huangfu and the others arrived, they saw that the disciplinary department was completely surrounded. A few trees outside the courtyard of the disciplinary department were tied with knots of rope, and over 10 students had stuck their heads inside. They looked like they were about to hang themselves. Below them, there were over 200 students with disheveled hair and dirty faces. Their eyes were red, and they looked like they had nothing else to live for. Nonsense. This is absurd. What the hell is going on? Dean Huangfu flew into a rage. Dean Huangfu rarely flew into a rage. Once he flew into a rage, all the instructors instantly became nervous, especially that instructor Chi. He jogged a few steps and said, "Dean, these Huang class students were bewitched by the rumors of Yun Chujio and surrounded Ma Sheng and the others. After I announced the punishment, this Yun Chujio incited everyone to force their case with their lives. This Yun Chujio is truly crafty and mischievous. She deserves to be expelled from Tianyuan Academy." Dean Huangfu frowned and then looked at Yun Chujio, whose little head was still in the knot. "Yun Chujio, what do you have to say?" Yun Chujio quickly jumped down from the chair, then, she said to the other group leaders, "Hurry up and come down. The wise and unparalleled Dean is here. Our grievances are finally being cleared." Yun Chujio wiped her tears and came in front of Dean Huangfu. After she bowed, she said indignantly, "Dean, as the saying goes, it's always better to live than to die. As long as we have a chance to live, we won't run to our deaths." But Instructor Chi, Ma Sheng, and Instructor Ma were in cahoots with each other. Instead of investigating the truth, they would give us a big demerit and even expel us instead. Our small arms can't outrun our thighs, we can only fight with our lives. Chapter 1035, A Person Must Be Courageous in Life. Instructor Chi saw that Dean Huangfu was silent, he immediately became anxious. "Dean, don't listen to this little girl's nonsense. She attacked Ma Sheng and the others first, and she even planned to frame Ma Sheng and the rest. I was completely impartial in dealing with them, and there was no selfishness involved at all." Impartial in dealing with them? There was no selfishness at all. One must speak with a conscience when he speaks. Aren't you feeling guilty when you said that? I've heard that you've received quite a lot of benefits from the Ma family's uncle and nephew and helped to frame many students. Many of the warnings and punishments on the students were fabricated by you from out of thin air. Yun Chujia's small face was solemn as she said firmly, "Seniors, today is a good time for us to set the record straight. Are any of you willing to come out and testify against Instructor Chi and the Ma family's uncle and nephew? People need to be courageous in life. Are you going to suffer in silence just like that? If you don't even dare to resist this small injustice, do you think that you can live in peace? I'm willing to testify. A few days ago, it was clearly Ma Sheng who humiliated me. I was so angry that I retaliated. Yet when we arrived at the disciplinary department, Instructor Chi had already given me a big demerit without even asking. He even said that Ma Sheng didn't do anything at all." A male student dressed in the second-grade Tian class uniform said. "I'm also willing to testify." "And me." "Me too." With someone taking the lead, the others became bolder. Moreover, even Dean Huangfu had been alarmed. It was indeed a good opportunity. They might be able to take down the uncle and nephew duo of the Ma family and Instructor Chi in one fell swoop. The sweat on Instructor Chi's forehead fell like a waterfall. He had never expected that the matter would spiral out of control. At that moment, Ma Sheng shouted in exasperation, "Shut up. All of you shut the fuck up. If you continue to spout nonsense, I will not forgive you." Dean Huangfu frowned when he saw Ma Sheng's arrogance. Compared to Yun Chujia's eloquence and pitiful appearance, Ma Sheng's arrogance was really displeasing. Ma Minghua was also among the instructors. He knew that something bad was going to happen today. He never expected that before he could make things difficult for Yun Chujio, she had already taken the initiative against him. At that moment, when he saw his stupid nephew's behavior, he wished he could go up and slap him to death. It's all because of that idiot. I will end up implicated by him. Deputy Dean Ian, the disciplinary department is under your jurisdiction. I hope that you can thoroughly investigate the matter of these students and do them justice. Dean Huangfu looked at an old man beside him. Yin Haoyu was one of the deputy deans of Tianyuan Academy. He nodded his head and said, "Dean, it's my negligence for the disciplinary department to be in such a mess. I will definitely investigate thoroughly and will not tolerate it. Dean Huangfu nodded and looked at Yun Chuzhou. Yun Chuzhou, Deputy Dean Yin will arrange for the matter to be investigated thoroughly. What exactly happened today? You have to tell the truth, or else I will not let you off easily. Yun Chuzhou saw the glint in Dean Huangfu's eyes. Moreover, there were many onlookers when the incident happened, so she could only tell the truth. However, telling the truth also had to be done skillfully. Dean, your vision is really sharp. You have seen through my little trick in an instant. I really admire you. Yun Chuzhou first put on a high hat for Dean Huangfu, then, she continued, after the meeting today, the students of our Huang class were planning to go back to the dormitory to rest. Unexpectedly, Ma Sheng led dozens of people to block our way, giving us two choices. One was to hand over 100 high-grade spirit stones each as gift money, and the other was to kneel and kowtow to them to beg for mercy. He even threatened us female students to do some dirty things with them. Chapter 1036, The So-Called Truth. When Yun Chuzhou said that, an expression of grief and indignation appeared on her face. Headmaster, we went through so much to get into Tianyuan Academy. We thought that this was a place of learning and education. Who would have thought that there would be rotten behavior from its students? Ma Sheng and the others are not our instructors, and they are not our elders. Why do we have to give them money to be filial? Besides, if we need to kneel, it only be to our parents or elders, why should we kneel to them? As for the third point, it's even more absurd. This isn't a brothel, and we female students aren't prostitutes, so why should we be forced to entertain them? Yun Chuzhou's words were filled with grief and indignation. When the students of the Huang class thought of the humiliation they had suffered, their eyes turned red and their faces were also filled with grief. Amongst the surrounding students, some had been robbed by the older students. When they recalled what had happened back then, they all revealed similar expressions of discontent. Just why should we give them money as a gift? Being a victim of those bad students made people angry. Yun Chuzhou stole a glance at Dean Huangfu's expression. When she saw his brows slightly furrow, she felt relieved. She continued, even though we were very angry after hearing what Ma Sheng and the others said, we thought that peace was the most important thing and begged them bitterly to let us go. We didn't expect that the responses we received were even worse, ridicule and more insults. They even threatened that if we didn't give them the money, we would never be able to return to our dorms. We really couldn't take it anymore, so we decided to force our way through. We didn't expect them to act so shamelessly, saying that if we dared to touch them, they would get us expelled from the academy. At that time, I also lost my cool. I felt that Tianyuan Academy was the best academy in the Tianyuan continent. How could they allow such a scoundrel to study here? Thus, I wanted to argue with Ma Sheng, but I didn't expect him to actually use foul language and even touch us. The students of the Huang class couldn't stand it anymore, so they started arguing with him. No one knew who made the first move, so everyone started fighting. Director, I admit that I was wrong. I shouldn't have fought back. I should have looked for the disciplinary department to settle the matter, but I don't regret it. Do we have to swallow our anger when we encounter such abuse of power and injustice? I'm willing to accept any punishment you give me. However, the other members of the Huang class are involved in this because they want to help me. They didn't do anything wrong. I, Yun Chuzhou, am willing to shoulder the responsibility for this matter alone. After Yun Chuzhou finished her explanation, she straightened her small body and looked as if she was ready to face death. When the Huang class students saw that Yun Chuzhou had taken all the responsibility, they were extremely touched. They shouted one after another, "Principal, please punish us. The class monitor offended Ma Sheng because of us. The class monitor is innocent. It was all because of Ma Sheng's lousy attitude that we had no choice but to resist." Even some of the surrounding students also shouted, "Yun Chuzhou is innocent. That Ma Xing robbing the freshman is shameless to the extreme. Even if we want to expel anyone, it has to be him. That's right. That Ma Xing isn't anything to begin with. Scum like him should have been expelled from the Tianyuan Academy long ago. And that instructor Qi, he always defends Ma Xing without investigating. There must be something fishy going on. And that Ma Minghua can't get away with it either. They are the ones who should leave. Dean Huangfu took a deep look at Yun Chujiu and saw that she had a righteous look on her face. He thought to himself, this little girl is really intelligent. If I were to expel her now, it would inevitably cause public anger, but if I did not, what use were the Academy's rules? Chapter 1037, War of Words against Deputy Dean Yin Dean. Although Yun Chujiu and the Huang class had their reasons, their beating of their seniors is a well-established fact. Moreover, it involved sensationalism. She was a bad influence on the rest. The others can be given a lighter sentence, but the culprit, Yun Chujiu, must be expelled. Deputy Dean Yin said sternly. Yun Chujiu secretly glanced at Deputy Dean Yin. This Yin Haoyu was the fourth elder of the Yin family. He should be the fourth grandfather of Yin Sulian and the others. Was he going to use his position to seek personal revenge against her? Just as Yun Chujiu was about to retaliate, someone said, Deputy Dean Yin, you're wrong. Yun Chujiu is the class monitor of the Huang class. It would be disgraceful if she didn't do anything when her classmates were humiliated. Although her behavior was extreme, it was understandable. This was the result of the instructor not teaching her well enough. All the responsibility lies with me. If you want to punish someone, punish me. Ji Sha, you don't have to worry about that. As the instructor in charge of the Huang class, you naturally will also be implicated in this. Also, don't forget what kind of situation you are in. You still want to take the blame on behalf of others. Why don't you take a look at yourself first? Deputy Dean Yin's eyes were filled with hints of disdain. Ji Sha clenched and loosened his fists. It was obvious that he was furious. When Yun Chujiu saw that, a fierce look flashed across her eyes. She was a very protective person, even though she had not been in contact with Instructor Ji Sha for a long time, she felt that Instructor Ji Sha was very compatible with her temperament. Now that she saw that Instructor Ji Sha was being treated like that while he pleaded for her, she naturally grew furious. Deputy Dean Yin, as the Deputy Dean of the Tianyuan Academy, shouldn't you be more careful with your words? What do you mean by I am the main culprit? The main culprit is Ma Sheng and the others standing behind you. We are mere weaklings who were forced into action. Furthermore, what do you mean by telling Instructor Ji Sha to take a look at himself? As an instructor of the academy, isn't he already qualified? Does Tianyuan Academy hire instructors on a whim? Or is it because you are the deputy dean that you are so high and mighty that you look down on us students and instructors? Could it be that the Tianyuan Academy has lost its pedigree? Is it because your Yin family is so powerful that none of us have the right to speak up to you? Furthermore, the disciplinary department is within your responsibility. Whether it's the seniors robbing the freshmen or that Instructor Qi abusing his power for personal gain, they all happened right under your nose and you turned a blind eye to them. Wait a minute, are you colluding with them? Yun Chujiu took 2 steps forward and stared at Deputy Dean Yin without the slightest hint of fear. Deputy Dean Yin could not believe his ears. How could a mere freshman criticize him in public? Was she crazy? Deputy Dean Yin glanced at Yun Chujiu sinisterly and released his spirit pressure. However, he did not expect Yun Chujiu to still be staring at him with a cold smile on her face. Deputy Dean Yin was slightly shocked. This little girl was a little strange. She was not afraid of his pressure at all. Could it be that she had some kind of treasure on her? Perhaps it was a gift from the palace mistress, but she was just an old friend's daughter. Did she really think that she was something special? She had to be kicked out of the Tianyuan Academy today. Yun Chuzhou, although you are sharp-tongued, it is true that you ganged up on the senior. Needless to say, you are expelled from the Tianyuan Academy. Deputy Dean Yin said viciously. Yun Chuzhou smiled coldly. Deputy Dean Yin, the Tianyuan Academy does not have the name Yin in it. Do you think that you represent the entirety of the Tianyuan Academy? Or are you plotting to remove the word deputy from your title? You are spouting nonsense. Deputy Dean Yin was immediately angered by Yun Chuzhou's words. Chapter 1038, Dean Huangfu metes out the punishments. Deputy Dean Yin had lost his composure, his face darkened. Yun Chuzhou, I am punishing you according to the Academy's rules. You don't have to be so glib. You can leave Tianyuan Academy now. If you don't, I will have the guards remove you. Deputy Dean Yin, you keep mentioning the Academy's rules. I wonder where you were when those students were treated unfairly. Also, since they were acting according to the Academy's rules, how should Ma Sheng and the others be dealt with for robbing the freshmen? Should they be expelled as well? A dog bit a person and the person chased the dog away. The dog was completely fine, but the person was beaten up by the dog's owner. How outrageous is that? Yun Chuzhou naturally knew that offending Deputy Dean Yin was not good for her. However, she had already offended the Yin siblings, so she did nothing else to lose. When the surrounding students and instructors saw Yun Chuzhou's heroic performance, they were all dumbfounded. That Yun Chuzhou was too bold. She dared to go against Deputy Dean Yin. How would she be punished for that behavior? She would probably be expelled for sure. The Yin siblings in the crowd sneered in their hearts. That Yun Chuzhou was really stupid. Their fourth grandfather had originally wanted to find an opportunity to deal with her, but he did not expect her to actually give him a chance to so easily. As long as she was expelled from Tianyuan Academy, the Yin family's secret guards would be able to kill her for their revenge. Men, expel Yun Chuzhou from the Tianyuan Academy. Deputy Dean Yin decided not to argue with Yun Chuzhou anymore. He ordered the guards to expel Yun Chuzhou. Feng Ming, the other two, and the people from the Huang class saw the situation and surrounded Yun Chuzhou. They shouted one after another, "You can't expel the class monitor. The class monitor is right. Why should the rabid dog that bites be fine, but the person who chased away the rabid dog have to be punished? This isn't fair. You're all rebelling. If you don't move, all of you will be expelled." Deputy Dean Yin threatened in anger. Feng Ming sneered, "So be it. We thought that the #1 academy in the Tianyuan continent was a sacred place. We didn't expect that they would allow the practice of such rotten behavior. They protected students who caused trouble and punished the victims instead. It's a reversal of right and wrong. There's no justice. We rather not study in such a crooked place." Gung Yi and Shi Xian also added from the side, "Right. This way, there's no distinction between right and wrong. The academy that takes sides and engages in private affairs is no longer the Tianyuan Academy that we yearned for in our hearts. If you want to expel us, then go ahead." Some of the students from the Huang class also shouted out of anger, "We don't care either. If you want to expel us, then just expel us." The onlookers whispered among themselves. It was obvious that Deputy Dean Yin was in cahoots with Instructor Qi and the others. No wonder Instructor Qi was so arrogant. It turned out that he had someone more powerful behind him. Right, the Ma family that Ma Sheng was from was a subsidiary family of the Yin family. So that was the case. These people all stood to profit from each other. No wonder they protected each other. With the situation at a stalemate, Dean Huangfu coughed and said in a deep voice, "Ma Sheng took the lead in blackmailing the new students and thus will be expelled immediately. The rest of the second-grade Tian class students involved with him will be given demerits. As for the matter of Instructor Ma and Instructor Chi, to avoid suspicion of the disciplinary department, Deputy Dean Xiao will perform an internal investigation and then deal with it accordingly. Although Yun Chujio was the victim, her actions were still improper. She was punished to clean up the Spirit Beast Garden for a month, and the other first-grade Huang class students were punished to clean up the classrooms for a month. Instructor Ji Sha's management was not good, and he was punished with deduction of a month's salary. Deputy Dean Yin was transferred to the Miscellaneous Affairs Department, and the Disciplinary Department was taken over by Deputy Dean Jiang. After Dean Huangfu finished speaking, he did not care about the reactions of the people present and left without a word. Chapter 1039, Did you notice those knots? Ma Xing hugged Ma Minghua's thigh and cried out bitterly, "Uncle, I don't want to be expelled. Help me plead for mercy. Help me plead with Deputy Dean Yin. He will definitely let me stay." Ma Minghua was so angry that his face turned red. If it was not for this idiot, things would never have gotten to that point. However, the Ma family only had one son, and they could not just stand by and watch him get expelled. Therefore, Ma Minghua looked at Deputy Dean Yin with pleading eyes. Deputy Dean Yin completely ignored Ma Minghua. His old face turned green and purple. He had never expected that Dean Huangfu would actually assert his authority in front of so many people. It felt like he was slapped in the face for incompetence. Dean Huangfu did not show any mercy at all. Not only did he overturn his decision, but he was also transferred from the disciplinary department. There was no comparison between the Miscellaneous Affairs Department and the Disciplinary Department. After an investigation, Ma Minghua and Instructor Qi would definitely be fired. He could not help them at all, he was already fortunate that he was not implicated as a co-conspirator. Seeing that Ma Minghua had not finished speaking, Ma Xing knelt in front of Deputy Dean Yin and said, "Deputy Dean Yin, please help me. I don't want to be expelled." Deputy Dean Yin had nowhere to vent his anger, so he kicked Ma Xing and said, "Get lost." Deputy Dean Yin gave Ma Minghua and Instructor Qi a look of warning, then left angrily. The students of the Huang class immediately cheered. Cleaning the classroom for a month was nothing compared to receiving a demerit. After that incident, Yun Chujia's prestige in the Huang class grew even higher. Instructor Ji Sha was also able to stand up for them at the critical moment, so these students had a better impression of this sloppy instructor. While they cheered, in the dean's study, an old man was talking to Dean Huangfu. "Dean, you've slapped Dean Haoyu in the face this time. Will he be angry from embarrassment?" Dean Haoyu's actions over the years have been getting more and more out of line. Originally, on account of his meritorious service to the Tianyuan Academy, I had turned a blind eye to it. However, he has become more and more impudent. He let the disciplinary department get involved in such a mess. Since the matter has become so big, we can use this opportunity to transfer him away from the disciplinary department. A crafty look flashed in Dean Huangfu's eyes, he was like an old fox. "Dean, if you handle it this way, I'm afraid that Yin Haoyu will hate that little girl, and even Ji Sha might be implicated," the old man said with some worry. "That little girl looks like she can take care of herself. It's not bad to let contend with Yin Haoyu. Watch over her secretly." "I see that old Xiao and old Jiang seem to be paying more attention to that little girl. Don't worry, nothing will happen to her." The old man nodded. "I heard that that little girl obtained first place in both rounds of the entrance test. In the third round of the test, she even found the core of the array. In the fourth round of the test, she was even more outrageous. She actually managed to obtain more than 100 jade tokens and even started a business. What a little weirdo. Her heavenly thunder root spirit was not wiped out by the Tian Dao. Naturally, she has her unique points. Ever since His Excellency and young Master Wuji graduated from the Tianyuan Academy, there have been no outstanding figures appearing. This Yun Chujio might be the next heaven's chosen. Dean, although that little girl is a little strange, she's only at the first level of the spirit sect now. Can she reach the level of His Excellency and young Master Wuji? Dean Huangfu smiled. I can't say in other aspects, but that little girl is shrewder than those two. Did you notice those knots? What's wrong with those knots? Aren't they used for hanging? The old man shook his head. The scene was so chaotic that he had not paid attention to those knots. Those knots are all live knots. The old man was left speechless. Chapter 1040, Spiritual Power Class. At this time, the sky had already turned dark. Yun Chujio brought the students of the Huang class back to the dormitory area. Early the next morning, the students of the Huang class had already been waiting at the entrance of Yun Chujio's courtyard. They waited for Yun Chujio to go to class together. Yun Chujio stretched her back and walked out of the courtyard. She followed the crowd and went to the classroom where the class was held. The first grade's 4 classes were held separately. The Huang class classroom was also a little shabby compared to the other 3 classes, but fortunately, it was still clean and tidy enough to study in. The first grade's classes were mostly classes related to spiritual energy. Only about 20% of the time was spent on the 5 arts of the cultivator class. The 5 arts of the cultivator class was an elective class, so the students were free to choose whether to attend or not. The first class was about spiritual power. When it was time, the instructor in charge walked in. Yun Chujio found the instructor familiar. She remembered that he was also there when Ma Minghua mocked Ji Sha yesterday. At that time, he also looked like a villain. Like attracts like after all. After the instructor came in, he only said that his surname was Zhou. Then, he started to teach according to the textbook. After instructor Zhou hurriedly finished reading, he said, "All right, you guys can try to experience it on your own." Today, the main topic was the materialization of spiritual power. Most of the students in the Huang class did not understand Instructor Zhou's lesson, but when a student asked a question, Instructor Zhou answered impatiently and dismissed them with just a few words. Yun Chujio frowned. Are all the instructors of Tianyuan Academy like this, or is Instructor Zhou that irresponsible? After the class, Instructor Zhou left in a hurry, not giving anyone the chance to ask questions. Class monitor, is it because our comprehension ability is too poor or something? Why can't I understand a thing he taught? That's right, class monitor. Instructor Zhou seems to dislike us. Is it because our aptitude is too poor? Class monitor, do you understand the contents of his lecture? Everyone, please calm down. Let's listen to a few more lectures and before coming up with a conclusion. Yun Chujio frowned as she spoke. She did not understand much of the lesson either. She had never heard of some of the terms Instructor Zhou used before, so she had no idea what he meant. When everyone heard Yun Chujio's words, they could only decide to wait and see. They wanted to see if they could understand the contents of Instructor Zhou's class after a few more lessons. Instructor Zhou did not return to his courtyard after class. Instead, he went straight to Deputy Dean Yin's study room. "Dean, I followed your instructions." Those idiots were all confused and did not dare to ask further. When the mid-year competition comes, the students ranked in the bottom 50 will be eliminated. Let's see if that trash Ji Sha still has the face to continue staying in Tianyuan Academy. And that Yun Chujio. Her spiritual power is the lowest. If she can't solidify her spiritual power, then she will definitely be eliminated. Instructor Zhou deliberately omitted the word deputy. Deputy Dean Yin nodded. There was no joy or anger on his face. There is an 80 to 90% chance that Ma Minghua and Qi Cheng will be removed from the academy. From now on, you will be my right-hand man. I will not mistreat you. Dean, don't worry. Back then, Ji Sha was also arrogant and went against you. Now, he has fallen like a beggar, not to mention Yun Chuzhou. What can a little girl do? Sooner or later, Tianyuan Academy will be yours, Instructor Zhou said with a flattering look. Deputy Dean Yin snorted. That old fool Huangfu Zhongheng. If it weren't for me, Tianyuan Academy might have already been destroyed. Now, he is putting on airs like the dean. He is detestable. If he doesn't show mercy, don't blame me for being unjust. Chapter 1041, Two Bears Fighting Each Other. The classes at Tianyuan Academy were arranged in such a way that students only studied in the morning, and in the afternoon, they had free time to do other activities. After her lunch in the canteen, Yun Chuzhou eagerly went to the Spirit Beast Garden. When Feng Ming's group and the other members of the Huang class said that they would accompany her, Yun Chuzhou waved her hands. You guys still need to clean up the classroom. I can do it myself. Besides, if you help me with my punishment, someone might voice their discontent. It's better for me to do it myself. Hearing her words, everyone had no choice but to give up. Yun Chuzhou hopped on to the Spirit Beast Garden. It was just in time for the third-year students' beast taming lesson. Yun Chuzhou could only wait at the side and listen to the class as it went on. Unlike the cultivators of the Azure Mystic Continent who only practiced 4 techniques, the people of the Tianyuan continent also learned an additional beast taming technique. However, beast taming techniques were very difficult to practice. Most people could only control some low-level demon beasts, which was equivalent to being of little value. Therefore, there were very few people who specialized in beast taming techniques. Many people only used beast taming techniques as a supplementary skill. The lowest level demon beasts in the Spirit Beast Garden of the Tianyuan Academy were 16th level demon beasts. These demon beasts already had intelligence and were very difficult to tame. Although these third-grade students had already learned beast taming techniques for 2 years, many still struggled. Fortunately, the majority of these students were at the 8th or 9th level of the spirit sect. Even if those demon beasts were to bite back, they would not be able to hurt them. It was just disheartening to see them unable to tame beasts much weaker than them. Today, these students were trying to tame a level 16 demon beast, the barbaric bear. Although this barbaric bear did not have any spiritual attacks, it had boundless strength and was very tough to deal with. Many students failed to control it. Instead, they were chased around by the barbaric bear and were left in a sorry state at the end of the lessons. A rotund male student was forced out of the bear house by a barbaric bear. Moreover, the third-grade disciple's uniform was black. It looked as if 2 bears had fought each other. Yun Chuzhou could not help but laugh out loud. It was like she had poked a hornet's nest. That fatty was so embarrassed that he had no place to hide. When he heard Yun Chuzhou's laugh, he immediately became angry. You trash from the first level of the spirit sect, what are you laughing at? The fatty climbed up and roared angrily. Senior, I'm sorry. I didn't mean any harm. I just couldn't hold it. I'm sorry. Yun Chuzhou touched her nose. Although this fatty's words were not pleasant to hear, but she should not have laughed at others either, it was better to hold it in. However, the fatty was unwilling to let it go. Aren't you Yun Chuzhou from the first grade's trash class? Humph. Since you were punished to clean up the beast house, you should recognize your own flaws and get lost. If you anger me, it'll make you suffer. Yun Chuzhou's face fell. Senior, I couldn't hold back my laughter just now. It was indeed my fault, but I've already apologized to you, yet you still called me trash and said get lost. Don't you feel that you've gone too far? Moreover, I was preparing to clean the bear house. Because you were in class, I was waiting at the side. Please keep your mouth shut. The fatty curled his lips. Keep your mouth shut. You were originally trash who ascended from the azure mystic continent. When did I say something wrong? You still dared to laugh at me? A country bumpkin like you probably don't even know what beast taming is. Country bumpkin. Yun Chujio was not a good-natured person to begin with. After she endured his tantrum for so long, this fatty was still unwilling to let her off. She was also angry. She curled her lips. Senior, since you said that, then don't blame me for being honest. The reason why I laughed just now was that I felt that it was too funny when two bears were fighting on the ground. Seniors, don't you all think so too? Yun Chujia's words caused a wave of laughter from the crowd. In fact, they had also laughed just now. It was just that Fatty targeted Yun Chujio because he felt she was weak. Chapter 1042, Don't You Want to Save Your Bare Faces? When Fatty heard the laughter of the crowd, he got even angrier. You brat, you need to be taught a lesson. Just you wait, I won't forgive you. Wu Heng, don't make any noise during class. Yun Chujio, wait over there first, don't interrupt our class. A middle-aged instructor saw that the matter was getting out of hand, so he spoke out to stop it. Seeing that the instructor had stepped in, Yun Chujio nodded and went to the beast house to wait. That fatty, although he gnashed his teeth in anger, he did not dare to disobey the instructor's commands, so he could only go back to paying attention to the class. After a while, Wu Heng and the others finished their beast taming class. Before Wu Heng left, he fiercely glared at Yun Chujio a few times, snorted coldly, and left. Yun Chujio pursed her lips and took out the token of the spirit beast garden and placed it in the groove outside the bear house. The 8 barbaric bears inside were then driven to the isolation area nearby. Yun Chujio took out a self-made gas mask and put it on. Then, she brought out her tools and began to clean the bear house. I didn't expect that I, Yun Chujio, would also become a poop-shoveling officer. Damn it, these stinky bears are too unhygienic. This place is so dirty. After Yun Chujio cleaned up the bear house, she took out the dye and divided a few areas on the ground. She then placed her hands on her hips and said to the barbaric bears, "Fortunately, you guys are demon beasts with intelligence. Why are you so unhygienic? Haven't you guys always wanted to cultivate the great Tao and obtain human forms? You guys have to start training now. Have you ever seen a human being as sloppy as you guys? How can you sweep the world if you don't clean up after yourselves? If you can't even do a good job of animal hygiene, how can you talk about the road to immortality?" Humph. I've already divided up the areas for you. There are drawings on them, and it's clear at a glance. I'll come over the day after tomorrow to check. If you're still not doing what you're supposed to do, I'll go to the other beast houses and publicize your actions. Let's see if you'll lose face. The 8 barbaric bears looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with confusion. Where did this little freak come from? What the hell was she talking about? The bear tribe had always been like this. What the hell was hygiene? Yun Chujio left the bear house. After removing the jade token, the 8 barbaric bears returned to the bear house. The bear house was cleaned very thoroughly and the ground was divided into 4 areas. One of them had a poop pattern drawn on it. That was obviously the defecation area. The other one had a chicken leg pattern on it indicating it was the dining area. The last one had a moon on it, so it should be the place to rest and sleep. The 8 barbaric bears looked at it and suddenly felt that it was not so bad like that. After all, they were only a few steps away from each other. It was not too troublesome and it was better than being mocked by other demon beasts. Yun Chujio was assigned to clean 2 beast houses in total. Other than the barbaric bear's beast house, there was also the vermilion-beaked long-feather crane's beast house. The vermilion-beaked long-feather crane's beast house was not far from barbaric bear's beast house. When Yun Chujio arrived at the beast house, she saw more than 20 vermilion-beaked long feather cranes inside. They all had long red beaks, snow-white feathers, and arrogant postures. The vermilion-beaked long feather crane was known to be a proud creature. However, its habit of excreting anywhere on the ground was not that good. The beast house was very dirty and in a messy state. Yun Chujio could not help but wonder if the instructor who arranged the work for her intentionally gave her these tasks. Why were all the beast house she had to clean so dirty? Yun Chujio placed the jade token on the groove outside the beast house. The vermilion-beaked long feather crane were driven to the isolation area. Yun Chujio still put on the gas mask and began to clean the beast house. Chapter 1043, Vermilion-beaked bare-bottomed cranes. After Yun Chujio finished cleaning, she used a die to mark out the area on the ground. She also repeated the same words she had said in Barbaric Bear's beast house. However, the vermilion-beaked long feather cranes did not have the same lack of self-esteem as those barbaric bears. After they had just been let in, they still defecated on the ground. They did not bother with Yun Chujio's words at all. Yun Chujio frowned and decided to take a look at the situation when she came back the day after tomorrow. 2 days passed quickly. After class, Yun Chujio hopped to the beast house. She first went to the barbaric bear's beast house and saw that the 8 barbaric bears were eating and excreting according to Yun Chujio's instructions. Yun Chujio was very satisfied. Not bad, not bad. As expected of a high-level demon beast. You will be able to cultivate the great Tao in the future. Yun Chujio was in a good mood and casually praised them. The 8 barbaric bears immediately cried out proudly. After Yun Chujio cleaned the bear house, when she arrived at the vermilion-beaked long feather crane beast house, she instantly grew furious. The beast house was in an even more chaotic condition than the last time. Moreover, those vermilion-beaked long feather cranes had purposely spread their food everywhere. When they saw Yun Chujio had come over, they deliberately flapped their wide wings and spread the debris everywhere. Immediately, all kinds of debris flew all over the entire beast house. The vermilion-beaked long feather cranes cried out arrogantly, just like how people laughed at them. As usual, Yun Chujio placed the jade token on the groove outside the beast house. The vermilion-beaked long feather cranes were to be driven to the isolation area. Yun Chujio would then put on her gas mask and began to clean up the beast house. Except at that time, the vermilion-beaked long feather cranes did not stop in the quarantine area. They called and flapped their wings to demonstrate their power to Yun Chujio. A fierce look flashed across Yun Chujio's eyes. Damn it, you flat-feathered beasts actually dare to provoke me. Let's see how I'll deal with you. Yun Chujio quietly sprinkled some powder on the food of the vermilion-beaked long feather cranes as she cleaned up the beast house. After the beast house was cleaned up, Yun Chujio let the cranes back into the beast house and pretended to leave. The vermilion-beaked long feather cranes returned to the beast house and chirped a few times proudly. How delusional of you to think that a small first-level spirit sect cultivator could command us. We'll torture you to death in the future. The cranes began to eat after their pompous display. They had been raised by people for a long time, so they had no vigilance at all. They ate all the food that had been added with Yun Chujio's seasoning. After a while, Yun Chujio returned. When she saw more than 20 vermilion-beaked long feather cranes lay asleep on the ground, she smiled sinisterly. Yun Chujio walked into the beast house and kicked a few of the vermilion-beaked long feather cranes. As expected, there was no reaction. Therefore, she reached out her evil paws and plucked off the tail feathers of more than 20 vermilion-beaked long feather cranes. The vermilion-beaked long feather crane instantly became vermilion-beaked bare-bottomed cranes. Yun Chujio looked at the bare-bottomed cranes on the ground and the corners of her mouth curled up. Little guys, aren't you all showing off the wrong things? Let's see if you still have the face to act arrogantly next time. Yun Chujio stored all the incriminating evidence on the ground in her storage ring. Then, she retreated outside the beast house and hugged her shoulders, waiting for the vermilion-beaked long-feathered cranes to wake up. Not long after, the vermilion-beaked long-feathered cranes woke up. They looked at each other in confusion, then turned their heads to look behind them. Immediately, they cried out in fear. The thing the vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes were most proud of was the long feathers on their tails. They did not expect for them to be all gone. Gone, gone, all gone. Where did their tail feathers go? Why had they disappeared when they woke up? Just as the flock of cranes panicked, they heard a little girl say with a smile, "Io, are you guys preparing to run around naked? You're really shameless birds. You actually exposed your buttocks. TSK TSK, you're all too shameless." Chapter 1044, A Little Devil in Disguise. The vermilion-beaked long-feathered cranes immediately understood that all of this was done by that little brat. Immediately, they began to call out crazily and pounce on the railings of the beast house. Yun Chujio curled her lips. "Not only are you shameless, but you're also brainless. There's a formation here, so you can't do anything to me. Naked cranes, ha ha ha, you're so ugly." The cranes were about to go crazy from anger, but even though they pounced on the railing angrily, they had no way of getting out of the beast house. As Yun Chujio winked at them, they got so angry that the cranes were about to faint. "Naked cranes, I'm warning you. If you don't follow my instructions and make use of the regions I marked out on the ground, next time you won't only lose the hair on your tails. I'll make sure there isn't a single feather left on your body. If you don't believe I'll do it, you're welcome to try your luck," Yun Chujio said with a smile. The cranes cried out in anger, trying to attract the instructors who were in charge of the spirit beast garden. Yun Chujio curled her lips. "Don't waste your effort. I've already asked around. Those instructors won't be here today, so it's useless even if you scream your lungs out. Moreover, even if you complain, your tail feathers won't come back. If you dare to complain, not only will I pluck all your feathers, I'll also draw a few extra decorations on you. Shameless. Too shameless." The cranes had never seen such a shameless person. Although they had intelligence, how could they compare to Yun Chujio, who was full of evil schemes? They were actually scared and let out a few angry cries. They no longer used their wings to hit the railings. Yun Chujio saw that the crane group had quieted down. Then, she said with a smile, "That's right. Let's discuss this like intelligent beings. We can talk about anything. Besides, I'm doing this for your own good. Being clean will also help your cultivation, right? Otherwise wouldn't there be no difference between intelligent birds like you and the mindless birds on the outside?" The cranes did not say a word. At this moment, their hearts were on the verge of breaking down. They originally thought that good-for-nothing person was easy to bully. They did not expect that she was actually a little devil in disguise. After Yun Chujio lectured them, only then did she say, "I've said everything that needs to be said. I'll come back the day after tomorrow to check again. If all of you are still dirty and messing the place up, I'll keep my word and let all of you run around naked. Don't think that the academy will expel me just because all of you went to complain to your instructors. Even if I'm expelled, I still have a way to make all of you run around naked before I leave." The cranes remained silent. They only used their eyes to express the anger and discontent in their hearts. Yun Chujio waved her hands with a smile. "Little birdies, I'm leaving. I'll see you the day after tomorrow." The cranes watched Yun Chujio skip away and wished they could rush out of the beast house and kill her. Unfortunately, they were powerless and could not do a thing. The next day, there happened a third-grade beast taming class. Those students found that the cranes had all obediently laid down with their necks facing outward, drooping their heads and closing their eyes to rest. Wu Heng, the fatty, saw that those vermilion-beaked long feather cranes were very obedient today and wanted to show off, so he took the initiative to propose to enter the beast house to practice his beast taming technique. Instructor Qian, who was in charge of the class, readily agreed. After opening the gap in the array, Wu Heng walked in, picked a smaller vermilion-beaked long feather crane, and began to use the beast taming technique. The crane group was already filled with anger, but now that damn fatty actually came in to find trouble, they immediately vented all their frustration and anger on Wu Heng. Fuck. We can't take care of that little devil, so you'll have to do. Peck him. Peck him to death. The crane group swarmed forward and pecked at Wu Heng. Chapter 1045, The Unlucky Wu Heng. Whether it was Wu Heng or those students or Instructor Qian, none of them had expected the cranes to suddenly attack. The level of spiritual power of these cranes was much lower than those of the students. Occasionally, one or two of them would bite back when they were being controlled, but most of the time, they were relatively docile. By the time Instructor Qian and the students reacted, Wu Heng had already been pecked until his body was a bloody mess. Everyone hurriedly ordered the cranes to retreat and rescue Wu Heng. Although the unlucky Wu Heng's life was not in danger, his injuries were still substantial. The fury that the flock of cranes had held in for the entire night was vented on Wu Heng. After a flurry of activity, everyone realized that the tail feathers of the vermilion-beaked long feather cranes had all disappeared. When the vermilion-beaked long feather cranes noticed the astonished gazes of everyone, they became even more ashamed and indignant. They flapped their wings angrily and still wanted to peck Wu Heng. It was all that damn fatty's fault. If he had not insisted on coming in, their secret would not have been discovered by these people. Peck him to death. The crowd hurriedly retreated from the beast house. Some students said, "Why are the tail feathers of these vermilion-beaked long feather cranes missing? Could it be that they are collectively changing their feathers? Forget it. I've never heard of these birds changing their tail feathers. Then why are the tail feathers of these vermilion-beaked long feather cranes missing? Could it be related to Wu Heng? Otherwise, why would those vermilion-beaked long feather cranes attack him so crazily? What you said makes sense. These vermilion-beaked long feather cranes are usually the most docile. It's impossible for them to attack him for no reason. Even if he didn't capture them, it's probably related to him. I heard that Wu Heng's uncle, Instructor Wu, is in charge of the beast house. Could it be that Instructor Wu did it? Is that why these vermilion-beaked long feather cranes attacked Wu Heng? How is that possible? The vermilion-beaked long feather cranes don't know that Wu Heng is Instructor Wu's nephew. Just as everyone discussed what they have just seen, a middle-aged instructor rushed over. Henger. Henger. How are you? It was Instructor Wu. When he saw the injured Wu Heng on the ground, he immediately flew into a rage. Instructor Qian, what's going on? How did Henger get injured? Instructor Wu, just now when Wu Heng was practicing the beast taming art, the cranes suddenly launched an attack. Usually, the cranes are very docile. We didn't react for a moment due to the shock of what just happened. Instructor Qian sneered in his heart, "You are the instructor in charge of the beast house, what kind of questions are you asking? Coming with the intention to interrogate us like it was our fault. How could the cranes attack people for no reason? Maybe it was you two who did this." Instructor Wu's gaze was directed at the cranes. The cranes retreated in fear. After they retreated to the living area that Yun Chuzhou drew for them, they lay on the ground and looked at the crowd. Only then did Instructor Wu realize that the tail feathers of the cranes were gone. He frowned. Why are the tail feathers of these vermilion-beaked long feather cranes gone? Instructor Qian said indifferently, "They were already like this when we came here." Could it be that it wasn't done by your spirit beast garden staff? How could we possibly pull off their tail feathers without getting hurt by the cranes? This matter must be thoroughly investigated. We must find out who was so lacking in morals that they pulled off the tail feathers of the cranes. Instructor Wu had blamed the person who pulled off the tail feathers for his nephew's injury. Instructor Wu immediately gathered all the instructors and handymen from the spirit beast garden. After a quick investigation, they immediately found out that it was Yun Chuzhou. At that time, Wu Heng had already woken up. He immediately shouted, "Uncle, that Yun Chuzhou laughed at me a few days ago. She must have done it on purpose. She is deliberately taking revenge on me." Chapter 1046, Who Did It? Instructor Wu's face darkened even more when he heard that. "Henger, uncle will definitely bring you justice. That Yun Chuzhou is too audacious. She dared to openly harm the Academy's spirit beasts. Uncle will immediately send someone to report her to the disciplinary department." After Instructor Wu finished counseling his nephew, he sent an instructor to the disciplinary department. Those third-year students and Instructor Qian did not leave either. Firstly, their class had not yet ended. Secondly, they were also somewhat curious. Could it really be Yun Chuzhou? If it was, then that she was too bold. She dared to pluck the tail feathers of those vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes. Those vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes were demonic beasts of the 16th level, and she was only at the first level of the spirit sect. How did she do it without getting hurt? Yun Chuzhou had been busy eating in the canteen. It was rare for her to be so generous as to bring out 2 roast chickens and give them to Feng Ming and the other 2. Just as the 4 of them were chatted and laughed, their identity jade plates started to tremble. After Yun Chuzhou sent her divine sense in, the corners of her lips curled up. "Senior brothers, you guys eat first. I'm going to the spirit beast garden." "The spirit beast garden? Haven't you already done the cleaning for today? What are you going there to do now?" Feng Ming and the other 2 asked in puzzlement. "It's nothing. I'm going to watch a show. I'll be back in a while," Yun Chuzhou said indifferently and then skipped away. Feng Ming and the other 2 looked puzzled. Watch a show? What kind of show was there in the spirit beast garden? When Yun Chuzhou hopped into the spirit beast garden, everyone's eyes were focused on her. Wu Heng's body was bandaged like a mummy. He shouted angrily, "Yun Chuzhou! You plucked the tail feathers of those vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes. Just wait to be expelled." Yun Chuzhou pouted, "What tail feathers? What a mess, what are you talking about? And are you very cold? Why are there so many strips of cloth wrapped around your body?" Wu Heng was so angry that he almost jumped up. "Stupid girl. If you hadn't plucked the tail feathers of the cranes, would the cranes have taken revenge on me? You openly hurt the demonic beasts in the spirit beast park, you will definitely be expelled." "What? The tail feathers of the cranes were plucked? Let me see. Who did it?" Yun Chuzhou shouted as she ran to the railing of the vermilion-beaked long-feather crane's beast house. "Io! Who did this? That person is too bold. How did he do it? Were these vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes were just waiting for their feathers to be taken away? Oh my God, the feathers on their buttocks are gone. How are these vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes going to live now?" They are the noble birds that treasure their reputation the most. It's really embarrassing to lose their tail feathers. Fortunately, only their tail feathers have been plucked. If the rest of their feathers were plucked too, they would die of embarrassment. Yun Chuzhou glared at the vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes as if she warned them to keep their beaks shut. The cranes felt an inexplicable chill on their bodies and quickly used their wide wings to protect their bodies. They were afraid that Yun Chuzhou would really jump in and pluck the rest of their feathers. When the crowd heard Yun Chujia's words, they felt a little uncertain. Yun Chujio clearly had a surprised tone and did not seem to be guilty at all. She probably really did not do it. She could not have dealt with so many vermilion-beaked long-feathered cranes alone, let alone pluck their feathers. Yun Chujio. Don't be so hypocritical. You were the one who cleaned up the vermilion-beaked long-feathered crane's beast house yesterday. If you didn't do it, then who did it? Wu Heng said angrily. Yun Chujio spread her hands. I cleaned up the beast house yesterday, but the birds were still fine when I left. Who knows how it turned out like this? I'm only in charge of cleaning up, not solving mysteries. If you're asking me, then who should I ask? Chapter 1047, Are you preparing to punish your family too? Wu Heng was rendered speechless. Instructor Wu snorted coldly. Yun Chujio, although you are eloquent, you can't escape the blame. Since yesterday, you're the only one that entered the crane's beast house. If you didn't do it, then who did? Instructor Yuan, what punishment would one receive for openly harming the academy's spirit beast? If that's the case, then the student would be expelled, said Instructor Yuan from the disciplinary department. Because of Yun Chujia's previous performance, his words were rather strict, as he was afraid of being caught by Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio glanced at Instructor Wu. Instructor, you have to be responsible for your words. What do you mean by saying that if it wasn't me, then who did it? Could it be that I have already been labeled a criminal? I have no enmity towards those vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes. Why should I pluck out their tail feathers? Those tail feathers cannot be eaten or sold. What's the point of plucking them? When the vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes heard Yun Chujio lying through her teeth, they were so angry that they started to twitch. However, when they recalled Yun Chujio's warning just now, they did not dare to do anything. They lowered their heads and did not make a sound. Instructor Wu was stunned by Yun Chujio's retort. He said angrily, if you didn't pluck them out, where did the tail feathers of these vermilion-beaked cranes go? Yun Chujio spread her hands. How would I know if you ask me? Perhaps they felt that it was too hot, so they pecked each other's feathers off. It was also possible that some people were trying to slack off. Although the tail feathers did not have any other uses, they could still be used as fans. Some people were so fat, so they would need a lot of feathers to fan themselves. Otherwise, why would the cranes attack that person for no reason? Why didn't the cranes attack the others? The vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes were so angry that they were on the verge of collapse. Feeling too hot? Did we peck each other's feathers off? It's not like we have a problem with our brains. This little girl's words were too sarcastic. The onlookers felt that the second possibility that Yun Chujio mentioned was more likely. Yes, if it was not Wu Heng who did it, why did the cranes attack him? Moreover, he also had an advantage over the others. He might have accessed the beast houses with his uncle's help. Wu Heng saw the suspicious gazes of the crowd and cursed angrily, "Stupid girl, you're spouting nonsense. Even if I were to make a fan, I wouldn't need to use the tail feathers of a vermilion-beaked long-feather crane. I can just use the feathers of a sharp-billed crested ibis." As soon as Wu Heng said this, he knew that he had spoken too much. Instructor Wu had often taken some materials from demonic beasts, especially feathers, and the like. In the past, he had given Wu Heng a fan made of the feathers of the sharp-billed crested ibis. However, there was no room for him to take back his words. Everyone immediately made the connection. Instructor Wu was so angry that he wanted to slap Wu Heng to death, that idiot. How could Yun Chujio let go of such a good opportunity? She immediately clapped her hands. Ha! Did you just admit to your crime? Since you admitted to plucking the feathers of the sharp-billed crested ibis, the tail feathers of the vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes must have also been plucked by you. Although I don't know what you used it for, it must have been done by a habitual criminal like you. Instructor Yuan, quickly expel this Wu Heng. Instructor Wu is a righteous person. He actually reported his nephew personally. It's really admirable. How could Wu Heng beat Yun Chuzhou in a war of words? He was dragged in by Yun Chuzhou with just a few words. Instructor Wu glanced at Yun Chuzhou sinisterly. Yun Chuzhou, you don't have to be so glib. You're the biggest suspect. Who plucked the tail feathers of these vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes? These vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes will be the ones to tell us. I'll ask the vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes now and see how you get out of this. Chapter 1048, The Cranes Testify. Yun Chuzhou spread her hands. Then let's ask. It's just that some people shouldn't shoot themselves in the foot. What if these vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes testify that it was your nephew who did it? When the time comes, are you also going to punish your own family, or are you going to cry and beg for mercy for him? Instructor Wu was a little uncertain after he heard Yun Chuzhou's words. He looked at Wu Heng suspiciously and Wu Heng shouted, "Uncle, I really didn't do it. Just ask the birds." Instructor Wu then walked to the railing of the vermilion-beaked long-feather crane beast house. Who plucked your tail feathers? Was it Yun Chuzhou? Instructor Wu pointed at Yun Chuzhou with his finger. Yun Chuzhou curled her lips. Instructor Wu, your question is misleading. However, I believe that such a noble bird like the vermilion-beaked long-feather crane will tell the truth. Do you think that I pulled out your beautiful tail feathers? Yun Chuzhou looked at the vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes with a wry smile. As she asked, she touched her hair with her hand. The vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes trembled. At that moment, their hearts were in a dilemma. Of course, they wished that Yun Chuzhou would be punished. However, when they recalled Yun Chuzhou's warning, even if she were expelled, she would still have a way to get rid of their feathers. If they really lost all their feathers, they would lose the will to live. The cranes finally decided to give up. After all, their tail feathers would grow again in a few days. They should not offend that little devil. She was too evil. They only provoked her for a little and she had already plucked all their tail feathers. If they reported her, she would definitely not let them off. The cranes looked at each other and shook their heads like a rattle drum, denying that Yun Chuzhou was the one who plucked the tail feathers. Yun Chuzhou clapped her hands. Did everyone see that? I told you I was innocent, right? How could a kind person like me pluck their tail feathers? Instructor Wu, why don't you ask the cranes if these tail feathers were plucked by your nephew? Why then would these beautiful and noble birds attack Wu Heng for no reason? He must have done something wicked. Everyone's gaze focused on the Wu uncle and nephew duo. All suspicion on Yun Chuzhou had already been cleared, so the biggest suspect by then was Wu Heng. Instructor Wu was also uncertain. He had indeed given him the jade token from the beast house to facilitate his beast taming practice. Could it really be Henger's doing? Wu Heng raised his neck. Uncle, feel free to ask. I didn't even come to the spirit beast garden last night, let alone pluck the tail feathers of these vermilion-beaked long-feather cranes. Instructor Wu heard Wu Heng's words, and to show that he was impartial, he asked the flock of cranes, did Wu Heng pluck your tail feathers? Yun Chuzhou, who stood at the side, said with a smile, Wu Heng is the fatty that you pecked with your beaks just now. Did he pluck your tail feathers? Otherwise, why did you attack him? I believe that such noble birds like you would not attack people for no reason. There must be a reason. The crane group pondered the meaning of Yun Chuzhou's words in confusion. Why did they feel that the little devil wanted them to testify against the fatty? However, that fatty was clearly a detestable person anyway. He dared to attempt to command them around like a pet. Since they could not peck him to death, it was good enough to be able to frame him. It was the right time to punish him for his arrogance. Hence, the Crane group immediately nodded non-stop and even cried out angrily. Yun Chujio sighed. Instructor Wu, now it's become hard to deal with. Will you punish your family? Or will you let him go due to his relationship with you? Everyone's gaze immediately turned towards Instructor Wu. He then realized that had just shot himself in the foot. Everyone waited to see what he would do. Chapter 1049, Apologize to the Cranes. Before Instructor Wu could say anything, Wu Heng ignored the pain in his body and ran to the crane house's beast pen and pointed at the cranes. Are you all stupid? When did I pluck out your tail feathers? It was clearly that damned girl who did it. Why are you framing me? The cranes were also capable of bullying others. Moreover, Yun Chujio had just said that they were noble birds, yet this damn fatty had called them stupid birds. His behavior was too detestable. The cranes cried out in anger and pounced on the side of the railing. They kept using their wings and long beaks to attack Wu Heng. At that time, the people who watched were certain that Wu Heng must have plucked the tail feathers of the flock of cranes. Even Instructor Wu was uncertain. Those tail feathers were most likely plucked by Heng. That idiot, just admit you plucked them. What are you quarreling about? This is great, so many people know about this now, so how can I protect you? Uncle, I didn't do it. I was in the dormitory yesterday afternoon. Wu Heng was so upset that he wanted to throw up blood. I have never been to the crane's dormitory, how could it be that I plucked the tail feathers? Instructor Wu was about to cry from his nephew's stupidity. In the dormitory? If that's the case, will there be anyone that can testify for you? Even if you want to find someone to perjure your testimony for you, there's no way. Instructor Wu's forehead was dripped with sweat. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, and he had even called the disciplinary department's instructor over. How was he going to end things now? Could it be that he was going to get Henger expelled from Tianyuan Academy? Instructor Yuan from the disciplinary department coughed and said, Instructor Wu, right now, Wu Heng's chances don't look very good. If we can't find any evidence, then we can only expel him according to the school rules. This, Instructor Yuan, this matter should be a misunderstanding. Henger wouldn't do such a ridiculous thing, Instructor Wu said with a smile. Instructor Yuan sneered in his heart, misunderstanding? The Crane group had pointed out that it was your nephew who pulled out their tail feathers. Otherwise, how could they be so angry? Instructor Wu saw that Instructor Yuan did not speak, and he grew even more anxious. What should I do? Could it be that I have to go beg Deputy Dean Yin? I have something that I don't know whether to say or not. Yun Chujio weakly raised her small hands. Instructor Wu said unhappily, what do you mean? Speak. Although it's wrong for Wu Heng to pluck the tail feathers of the cranes, they have already punished him. Moreover, plucking tail feathers doesn't count as harming the spirit beast. After all, the tail feathers can still regrow eventually. Just let Wu Heng apologize to the cranes and forget about this matter. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and said in a diplomatic tone. Instructor Wu never thought that Yun Chujio would plead for mercy for Wu Heng. However, he did not have the time to think about Yun Chujio's motives now. He quickly followed Yun Chujio's lead and said, Instructor Yuan, what Yun Chujio said makes sense. The tail feathers of the vermilion-beaked long feather crane can regrow. After some time, they will grow back again. Moreover, Henger has already been punished. If Henger apologizes to the cranes, let's forget about this matter. Instructor Yuan's expression darkened slightly. Instructor Wu, the disciplinary department isn't your personal attack dogs. We're not people who can just come and go as you please. Don't make such jokes again next time. Instructor Wu knew he was in the wrong. With a smile, he said a lot of nice things to Instructor Yuan to placate him. Then, he said to Wu Heng, Henger, why aren't you apologizing to the cranes? Just apologize and this matter will be over. Wu Heng's heart was like a raging river. He clearly did not do anything, so why was he blamed? Who had he offended? Not only did he get injured, but he also had to apologize to the cranes. He even gained the reputation of being a fucking feather thief. Chapter 1050, Master, why are you so kind? Wu Heng wanted to argue further, but Instructor Wu glared at him. Quickly apologize. Otherwise, I'll immediately write a letter to your father. Wu Heng was immediately terrified. He could only walk to the front of the crane shed and apologize reluctantly. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have plucked your tail feathers. The cranes were originally angry. Now that the damn fatty had apologized, they returned to the resting area that Yun Chujio had drawn and lay down, no longer paying any attention to the people outside. Instructor Wu quickly laughed. It seems the cranes have decided to let this matter go, then let's also just forget about it. Instructor Yuan, Instructor Qian, it's my fault for being rash. I'll treat you someday and apologize to the two of you. Instructor Yuan and Instructor Qian exchanged a few words of courtesy and laughed coldly in their hearts. This Instructor Wu was thick-skinned enough to brazenly protect his nephew. He had probably used his power for personal gain many times. However, he was Deputy Dean Yin's lackey, it was better for them not to get on his bad side. Cough cough. Instructors, if there's nothing else, I'll be leaving. Although the feeling of being wronged is very unpleasant, fortunately, I was cleared of suspicion in the end. Otherwise, I would really have taken the injustice to my grave. Yun Chujio said with a sigh. Instructor Wu opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he did not know what to say. He could only watch as Yun Chujio hopped away. The third-grade students went to other beast houses and left the spirit beast garden after class. Only Instructor Wu stayed behind. Uncle, I really didn't pluck the tail feathers of those cranes. Wu Heng swore. If you didn't, why would they have hated you so much? Instructor Wu glared at him and said. Wu Heng said aggrievedly, how would I know? In any case, I really didn't do it. I think it's most likely that Yun Chujio did it. Instructor Wu frowned, no matter what, if it wasn't for Yun Chujio's quick thinking, it wouldn't have ended well for you today. Don't find trouble with her anymore. That little girl is too scheming. You can't beat her. Wu Heng reluctantly agreed, but he did not think much of it in his heart. Humph, she must have felt guilty to be involved in the first place. She must have plucked the tail feathers of the cranes. He would find an opportunity to teach her a lesson. At that time, Yun Chujio had hopped back into the dormitory. Little Black Bird asked in confusion, Master, why did you help Wu Heng? When did you become so kind? Master Bird, am not that kind. It's just that if they investigated further, the culprit will inevitably be found out. This is the best ending. Moreover, it also gave me a good reputation of being kind and magnanimous, so why not? Yun Chujio said with a smile. Little Black Bird curled its lips. It knew that their master's heart was black. How could she suddenly have become a white lotus? After Yun Chujio cleaned the beast houses for a few days, some instructors and handymen in the spirit beast garden discovered that the beast houses of the violent barbaric bear and the vermilion-beaked long feather cranes were very neat. The demonic beasts were all moving in fixed areas and were very obedient. Someone reported the matter to Instructor Wu. After Instructor Wu checked it out, he asked everyone to learn how to do the same in other demonic beast areas. Unfortunately, the effect was not as they expected. Those other demonic beasts did not listen to them at all. Yun Chujio's chaotic academy life became more and more peaceful. The students of the Huang class listened to her every word. Every day, after she attended classes and cleaned the spirit beast garden, she worked hard to cultivate. She deeply felt that being seen as a weakling would not be a good thing in the long run. Chapter 1051, The Incompetent Spiritual Power Class Instructor. Almost half a month had passed, and Instructor Zhou's spiritual power class was still conducted the same way as before. Most of the students in the Huang class could not understand him, and even a monster like Yun Chujio could only understand 80% of the meaning. Moreover, it was mostly due to guesswork. Yun Chujio felt that such conditions could not go on. She had to think of a way to verify whether Instructor Zhou was actually capable of being an instructor. On this day, when Instructor Zhou was in the middle of his spiritual power class, Yun Chujio's small face was pale and beads of sweat dripped down her face. She asked for leave to return to the dormitory to rest. Although Instructor Zhou hoped that Yun Chujio would die of pain, he was afraid of being caught and reluctantly agreed. However, he did not allow anyone to accompany her back. Unexpectedly, this played right into Yun Chujio's hands. She ran to a quiet place and activated her concealment talisman. Then, she sneaked into the Tian class classroom and carefully restrained her aura to eavesdrop on the content of the class. At this time, the Tian class was also having a spiritual power class. The person in charge of the class was Mo Hanshuan. Yun Chujio listened for a short while, then sneaked into the D-class classroom to eavesdrop on them as well. In the end, she sneaked into the Xian class classroom to eavesdrop for a short while, then returned to the dormitory with a frown. Without a doubt, the standard of Instructor Zhou's lecture was not so inferior to that of the other three classes instructor in charge. It was just that she did not know if it was because of his methods or whether he intentionally taught them in a vague manner. Regardless of which point it was, she could not allow Instructor Zhou to continue to teach the Huang class. Otherwise, during the mid-year competition, their Huang class would definitely be at a disadvantage. It was not just a matter of saving face, the main issue was that the last 50 students would be eliminated from Tianyuan Academy. That would be terrible. However, how could she drive Instructor Zhou away? If she were to protest collectively, it would probably not have a good effect. Although the punishment for beating up Ma Sheng and the others last time was not too severe, the risk was too great. This time, she had to think of another way. Yun Chujio thought for a bit and her eyes lit up. She took out a voice transmission talisman and gave Feng a few instructions. 2 days later, the students had a 10-day break from their studies. Junior sister Little Jiu, in these 3 days of our 10-day break, what are your plans? Feng Ming asked with a smile. Yun Chujio thought for a moment and said, I plan to go for a walk around Long Wind Inn. What about you guys? We won't go. We want to use these 3 days to digest the contents of our recent spiritual power lessons. We don't quite understand it, Feng Ming said with a slight blush. He had always thought that his aptitude was not bad in the Azure Mystic continent. However, when he arrived at the Tianyuan continent, he was repeatedly dumbstruck. If it was not for junior sister Little Jiu, he would not have been able to enter the Tianyuan Academy. Actually, it's not just the three of us who don't understand him. The vast majority of people from the Huang class don't understand either. I feel that Instructor Zhou is intentionally doing this, Shi Xian said from the side. Gung Yi also echoed, yes, junior sister Little Jiu, do you understand his lessons? I can barely understand most of it. It's not a problem with us, it's definitely him. Don't worry, I will get rid of Instructor Zhou very soon. Yun Chujio said confidently. Feng Ming and the other two knew that Yun Chujio had many evil schemes, so they did not ask further. After bidding farewell to the three of them, Yun Chujio left the Tianyuan Academy and went to Long Wind Inn. Miss Jiu, everything is normal in the Azure Mystic continent. This is a letter from old Master Yun to you, and Feng handed Yun Chujio a letter. Yun Chujio took the letter and read it. It contained Yun Xiaoshan's words of concern and advice for her. Her heart felt warm, and it felt good to have a family member care about her. Little madman, where is the thing I asked about? Yun Chujio stretched out her hand and asked in Feng. Chapter 1052, She's Too Evil. And Feng handed two things to Yun Chujio and asked curiously, Miss Zhou, what do you want this recording stone and irritant powder for? Instructor Zhou, who is our spiritual power instructor, is obviously teaching us badly on purpose. I have to see strong evidence to expose him away and change him to a responsible and competent instructor. Yun Chujio's eyes flashed with a trace of sternness. If you dare to fool me, I will make you suffer the consequences. And Feng lit a candle in his heart for Instructor Zhou. This Miss Zhou of theirs can never be fooled. You actually dared to play tricks in front of her. You are simply courting death. Yun Chujio asked Feng some more questions before she activated the isolation array and began to refine some pills. Although Feng had already witnessed Yun Chujio's abnormal pill refinement methods, he still felt a shock in his heart when he saw it again. Damn, Miss Zhou was truly abnormal. She made pill refinement seem like a children's game. The main reason was that the pills that she refined were all super-grade pills, and the success rate was 100%. It was really scary. Yun Chujio stayed in her room to refine pills for 2 days and 2 nights. Then, she handed a few large basins of pills to Feng and asked him to pass them to Yu Hai of the Thunder sect. Shopkeeper Qi paced around outside a few times. He was puzzled. What was this Miss Zhou and Feng doing in the room? Why did they activate the isolation array? Was it to guard against him? Finally, upon seeing Yun Chujio come out of the room, Shopkeeper Qi pretended to have just arrived and asked, Miss Zhou, do you have any orders for me? Yun Chujio glanced at the messy footprints on the ground and said with a smile, Shopkeeper Qi, you are really thoughtful. You don't have to stand guard for me next time. Shopkeeper Qi's old face turned red, but he was old and cunning. He laughed and said, Miss Zhou, I haven't seen you for a long time. I'm anxious to ask if you need any help. Did everything go smoothly in Tianyuan Academy? Not bad. I just accidentally made some noise, Yun Chujio said and left with a yawn. Shopkeeper Qi looked at Yun Chujio's back and asked Feng, Commander Feng, what noise did Miss Zhou make? Feng's eyes twitched. Well, Miss Zhou led the students of the Huang class to beat up dozens of people from the second-grade Tian class. Then she ran to the gate of the disciplinary department to attempt to hang herself. Shopkeeper Qi staggered and almost fell to the ground. What? How was that some noise? Miss Zhou, will you turn Tianyuan Academy upside down? Commander Feng, how did the Miss Zhou get assigned to the Huang class with her results? Wasn't the Huang class not set up for many years? Shopkeeper Qi came back to his senses and said. I guess they found out about Miss Zhou selling jade tokens in the 4th round of the test, so she was sent to the Huang class, Feng guessed. Then how did she become the class monitor? Why did she gang up on the second-year students of the Tian class? Why did she go to the disciplinary department to hang herself? She caused such a big fuss, but nothing happened. Didn't they say that Tianyuan Academy has strict rules? Shopkeeper Qi was full of questions. Looking at Miss Zhou's appearance, she seemed like she had not received any punishments at all. How was that possible? Feng rambled on about what Yun Chujio had told him earlier. Yun Chujio was such a freak. While refining pills, she told Feng about what had happened recently. Shopkeeper Qi was stunned when he heard everything. His mouth did not close for a long time. Oh God, this Miss Zhou was too much of a devil. She had almost messed up half of Tianyuan Academy. What was even worse was that she was only punished to clean the beast house for a month after causing such a huge commotion. How on earth did she do that? When did Tianyuan Academy become so lenient? Chapter 1053, The Pretty Boy's Subordinate, Ahem. Shopkeeper Chi, Miss Chio also did something just a few days ago. She plucked out the tail feathers of more than 20 vermilion-beaked long feather cranes in the spirit beast garden of Tianyuan Academy. Anfeng forced a smile and said, "What the hell? Why did she pluck out their tail feathers for no reason?" Shopkeeper Chi felt that his worldview had been severely impacted. Anfeng recounted what had happened in the spirit beast garden. Shopkeeper Chi felt that he was well-rounded and could talk his way out of a lot of situations. However, now that he saw that he could not even reach 1/10 of that little girl's level. She had managed to forcefully push the blame onto someone else and even pretended to be an innocent party. Moreover, the most important thing was that that little girl was really vengeful. She'd strike back even over the smallest grievance. Shopkeeper Chi thought about those naked vermilion-beaked long feather cranes and made up his mind. In the future, no matter what he said, he could not offend this little girl. She had too many schemes in her mind. Moreover, she was pure evil. Most importantly, she was good at distorting black and white. She was too much of a freak. Achoo! Achoo! Yun Chujio, who had walked towards Tianyuan Academy, sneezed a few times. She thought that Shopkeeper Chi and Anfeng must be whispering about her. These two loose-lipped men. Just as Yun Chujio cursed in her heart, she realized that there were people following her from behind. Yun Chujio used a small mirror in her sleeve to look behind her. She saw about 10 people following her from a distance. Although they were dressed in the same way as pedestrians, it was obvious that their eyes were focused on her. If Yun Chujio was fast, they would keep up with her. If Yun Chujio slowed down, they also would slow down. There was a dense forest not far ahead. They would probably make a move there. Yun Chujio rolled her eyes and activated a concealment talisman. The people behind her were instantly dumbfounded. Where was she? She was clearly in front of them just now. How could she disappear in such a short while? A concealment talisman. That wretched girl must have activated a concealment talisman. She did not expect that she would have such a good thing. It must have been given to her by the palace mistress. The leader, Scarface, looked around for fluctuations in spiritual power when he was suddenly staggered, after which, purple lightning bolts struck him one after another. Scarface did not expect that he would stumble for no reason. Caught off guard, although he managed to avoid the vital parts, he was still struck by Yun Chujio's lightning strike on his left shoulder. Scarface let out a miserable cry and directed several wind blades towards the spiritual power fluctuation. Yun Chujio had already dodged. Just as she was about to continue her attacks, several black-clothed men suddenly appeared from not far away and started to beat up the 10 or so people. The spiritual power of the men in black was much higher than the 10 men that followed her. In less than 15 minutes, the men who followed her were imprisoned on the spot and were beaten until their faces were swollen. "Miss Chio, your subordinate came late. Please forgive me." After the men in black imprisoned Scarface and the others, they knelt and apologized. Only then did Yun Chujio remove the concealment talisman and reveal herself. From the looks of it, these men in black were the pretty boy's subordinates. It had to be said that he was quite good at disciplining his subordinates. "Bring these people into the forest ahead. I'll interrogate them." Yun Chujio waved her hand to signal for them to stand up. She cursed in her heart, "Damn it, if only I had known that the pretty boy had sent secret guards to protect me, I wouldn't have been so cowardly." The secret guards of the Hall of Longevity brought Scarface and the others into the forest ahead. Yun Chujio raised her large kitchen knife and chopped one of them to death. Then, she took out a token from that person's storage bag. In front of it was a name, on the back was the character Yin. Chapter 1054, Miss Chiu had grown more ruthless. The Yin family. Yun Chujio's eyes flashed with a fierce light. The Yin family had acted rather quickly. She did not know if these men were sent on the Yin siblings or Deputy Dean Yin's orders. The secret guards of the Hall of Longevity had once followed Di Biming to the League of Assassins base to rescue Yun Chujio. At that time, they were shocked by Yun Chujio's abnormal behavior. Now, they saw that Yun Chujio had killed one of them without asking a single question. They thought to themselves that Miss Chiu had grown more ruthless since that time. Scarface and the others saw that Yun Chujio did not have any intention of asking for a confession and was actually planning to kill them all. They immediately begged for their lives. "Fairy, spare us. Spare us. We were only ordered by someone. We were forced to do so." Yun Chujio wanted this kind of effect. She looked at Scarface coldly. "Speak. If I am satisfied with what you have said, I will spare you. Otherwise, I will kill you one by one." "Ill speak. Ill speak. We are the Yin clan's second branch's secret guards. This time, we followed our young master, Yin Shuechen, to Tianyuan Academy to apply and study there. After our young master entered the academy, he made us stay in Vigor City. Yesterday, our young master sent us a letter, asking us to capture you and sell you to Itsue Tower. To save his life, Scarface spilled everything. Where's the letter? I burned it after reading it." Yun Chujio gave the secret guards of the Hall of Longevity a look. One of the secret guards hit Scarface and the others in the neck, which rendered them unconscious. "Find a place to lock them up. Maybe they will be useful in the future," Yun Chujio said lightly. "Yin Shuecheng. Since you are so eager to die, I will find an opportunity to send you on your way. When I was in the Azure Mystic Continent, I was too worried and could not kill Zhuo Piaoyu in time, and almost caused a disaster. This time, I must learn my lesson." The secret guards of the Hall of Longevity split into two. One group escorted Scarface and the others away, while the other group secretly escorted Yun Chujio back to the academy. After Yun Chujio returned to the Tianyuan Academy, she returned to her dormitory and began to cultivate. No matter where she went, she had to rely on her own strength. Her current spiritual power was too low. Although she could challenge those of a higher level in other aspects, she was still too weak. While Yun Chujio cultivated in peace, Yin Shuecheng felt a little restless. The men he sent to kill Yun Chujio seemed to have vanished into thin air. There was no news from them at all. Could it be that Yun Chujio, that smelly girl, had killed them all? Impossible. His men were at least at the 7th level of the spirit sect. How could they not be able to defeat Yun Chujio, that weak smelly girl? Could it be that that wretched girl had someone protecting her in the dark? Could it be that the palace mistress had sent secret guards? If the palace mistress had sent a secret guard to Yun Chujio, it meant that that wretched girl's position in the palace mistress' heart was extraordinary. The palace mistress would not be angry, right? The more Yin Shuecheng thought about it, the more afraid he became. He gritted his teeth and went to see Deputy Dean Yin. Deputy Dean Yin listened to Yin Zucheng's account of what had happened. He shouted angrily, "Didn't I tell the three of you not to act rashly for the time being? Idiot! If you want to kill that little girl, you only need to do something inside the academy. Moreover, you won't be discovered by others. If you do things like this, won't you drag down the entire Yin family?" "Fourth Grandpa, I was wrong. I was angered to death by that damn girl. Not only did she force Su Lian and me to kneel and apologize to her during the test, she even cheated us of 200,000 high-grade spirit stones. What was even more infuriating was that she embarrassed you in public. I really couldn't stand it anymore. Yin Xuecheng did not want to be scolded by Deputy Dean Yin, so he deliberately said that he was doing it to help Deputy Dean Yin vent his anger. Chapter 1055, Wait for the show to begin. As expected, Deputy Dean Yin's tone softened when he heard Yin Zucheng's words. Since the matter has already happened, there's no point in saying anything more. In the future, you should just obediently study in the academy. You don't have to worry about matters related to that little girl anymore. Just leave it to me. Fourth Grandpa, I'll listen to you. Do you think that the palace mistress will blame our Yin family? Don't worry. I've heard of the palace mistress character. Even if she has her heart set on this little girl, it's still easily swayed. Those secret guards might be the guards of the Long Wind Inn, so there's no need to worry too much, Deputy Dean Yin said in a deep voice. Yin Xuecheng felt relieved after he heard Deputy Dean Yin's words. He left Deputy Dean Yin's courtyard dejectedly. The next day, the first class of the day was Instructor Zhou's spiritual power class. Yun Chuzhou fiddled with the instructor's desk for a while, then returned to her seat with a smile. She gathered the 10 team leaders together and gave them a few mysterious instructions. Everyone nodded, then she returned to her seat. Not long after, Instructor Zhou walked in. The entire classroom was filled with the fragrance of food. Yun Chuzhou held a pig trotter in her hand and happily munched on it. He curled his lips in disdain. He originally thought that this Yun Chuzhou was very difficult to deal with, but now it seemed that she was just a glutton with a glib tongue. Instructor Zhou opened the lesson plan and began the lesson. The lesson was as obscure and difficult to understand as usual. As a result, many students began to ask questions. Instructor Zhou felt very annoyed, and the words of disdain slipped out of his mouth. It's not that I want to say this, but the students of your Huang class are not ordinary. You can't even understand such simple and easy-to-understand content. You're trash, extremely stupid. How can a class like you compare to the other 3 classes? In a few months, you will all be eliminated from the year-end competition. It is important to know one's own limits. With your low aptitude, you shouldn't have entered the Tianyuan Academy. You have brought the overall standard of the Tianyuan Academy to a lower level. Humph. With your limited comprehension abilities, you will never be able to learn how to solidify spirit energy in this lifetime. A bunch of trash. It's a shame that you're still alive. Why didn't you hang yourself at the entrance of the disciplinary department the last time? It's better if all of you trash just died. The Huang class students all gnashed their teeth in anger. However, Yun Chuzhou had previously instructed them not to talk back to Instructor Zhou. Therefore, although they were all furious, they still listened obediently and no one dared to refute him. Instructor Zhou felt very proud in his heart. They were just a bunch of trash. They did not dare to make a sound when he scolded them like that. Deputy Dean Yin was too careful. These trash would not be able to achieve anything. After the class was over, Instructor Zhou left triumphantly. The students of the Huang class exploded. Class monitor, that Instructor Zhou is too much. Are we just going to endure it? Yes, class monitor, Instructor Zhou's actions are getting more and more out of hand. He usually just gives unclear lectures, and now he's starting to speak ill of us in our face. Let's go to the disciplinary department to protest this. Class monitor, hurry up and make a decision. We have to chase Instructor Zhou out. Yun Chuzhou blinked her eyes. Don't worry, your class monitor already has a good idea. I promise to make Instructor Zhou suffer. The Huang class members were extremely confident in Yun Chuzhou. When they heard what Yun Chuzhou said, they were instantly relieved. If the class monitor said so, then she would definitely do it. They just had to wait for the show to begin. Chapter 1056, Let's listen to something interesting. At noon, the canteen of Tianyuan Academy was usually very lively. There were no other canteens in Tianyuan Academy, so almost all the students and instructors would eat at the same place. Instructor Zhou and a few of Deputy Dean Yin's trusted aides sat together. Ever since Ma Minghua and Qi Cheng were fired, he had become Deputy Dean Yin's favorite aide, which made him feel full of himself. Brother Zhou, it is said that the first-grade Huang class students have average aptitudes. You have already taught them 20 days of worth of classes. What do you think? One of the instructors asked casually. Instructor Zhou curled his lips. In my opinion, that bunch of trash has sullied the reputation of our Tianyuan Academy. They have no qualifications to enter Tianyuan Academy at all. The other instructors at the same table looked at each other. They felt that some things should be kept to themselves, but why did this person just say it out loud? The instructor who asked the question quickly made a silent gesture. Instructor Zhou, be careful with your words. Although the effects of the medicine had subsided a little, Instructor Zhou was still in a half-excited state. He said arrogantly, "What's there to be afraid of? I even dared to say that in front of them. That bunch of trash could only listen obediently. They are trash to begin with, why would they be afraid of the truth?" The people sitting at the same table frowned. They felt that Instructor Zhou was a little too arrogant. He would get into trouble sooner or later if he kept speaking his mind like that. At that moment, someone saw a little girl standing on the table. She knocked on a large copper basin and shouted, "Everyone! Everyone, quiet down! There's no point in everyone eating anymore, instead, let's listen to something interesting. Are you interested?" Everyone was stunned. Then, they remembered what happened at the disciplinary department. That Yun Chuzhou was extraordinarily bold. Could it be that she was going to do something drastic this time? Everyone's eyes immediately flashed with the light of gossip. They began to jeer, "Yes. We are interested. Junior Yun, please tell us." "Yes, we were just feeling bored." "Junior Yun, go ahead and say it. We are all listening." Yun Chuzhou looked in the direction of Instructor Zhou. Instructor Zhou's heart inexplicably trembled, and a very ominous feeling rose in his heart. Yun Chuzhou knocked on the copper basin. Then, she said clearly, "What I want to play is a lesson recorded by the recording stone. Everyone must be patient. I heard that this instructor is recognized by our Tianyuan Academy as an instructor with a relatively high teaching standard, so everyone will not be disappointed. Moreover, there is some very explosive content at the back, so everyone must be patient." After Yun Chuzhou finished, she formed a seal with her hands, and the voice from the recording stone started playing. Instructor Zhou immediately recognized that the voice was his voice during his morning lecture in the Huang class, and he immediately stood up. The lesson plan he had given in the Huang class was deliberately written in a complicated and obscure manner. Moreover, some important parts were skipped, and people with discerning eyes could immediately tell that he deliberately misled the students. Under Instructor Zhou's fright, the remaining effects of the irritant powder in his body were immediately reduced by more than half. He roared angrily, "Yun Chuzhou! This dining hall is a place for eating. Quickly shut off that recording stone." Yun Chuzhou smiled at him. "Instructor Zhou, our Huang class is really lucky to receive your sincere teachings. Since your lectures are so good, why don't you let everyone experience them? Seniors, do you all want to continue listening to Instructor Zhou's wonderful lectures and comments?" Chapter 1057, had to get rid of him. As soon as Yun Chujio finished her sentence, the onlookers started to jeer. Listen. We want to listen. Junior Yun, continue playing. Yes, we heard that Instructor Zhou's spiritual energy lessons are simple and easy to understand. We regret not having the chance to attend his classes. Junior Yun, hurry up. We still have lessons in the afternoon. Hurry up and continue playing. The students of Tianyuan Academy usually cultivated if they had no classes to attend. They wanted nothing more than to have some fun, so they started to jeer one after another. Instructor Zhou wanted to go forward and stop Yun Chujio, but he was blocked by those students and instructors, whether intentionally or not. He was unable to get close to Yun Chujio's table for a while. Instructor Zhou's voice continued to be heard, and the spectators all whispered to one another. They had all taken spiritual energy lessons before, so they could easily tell that something was wrong. This level of teaching was relatively high. What kind of bullshit was he talking about? It was originally very simple, but he had beaten around the bush to make it sound more complicated. Also, some of the terms he used were rarely seen. It would be a miracle if a first-year freshman could understand them. The crowd quickly understood Instructor Zhou's intentions. He clearly tried to mislead his students. That was too much. When they heard what Instructor Zhou said later in the recording, everyone immediately exploded. That Instructor Zhou was too arrogant. No matter how bad the student's aptitude was in the Huang class, as an instructor, you should not insult the students like that. Such a person was not worthy of being an instructor. Instructor Zhou's face flushed red. At that moment, the effects of the irritant powder in his body had completely dissipated. He shouted in exasperation, Yun Chujio, this thing of yours is a forgery. I've never said such things. The students of the Huang class immediately refused to accept it. Fuck. We've tolerated you for a long time. Now that the evidence is conclusive, you still refuse to admit it. Do you still have any sense of shame? I'm willing to testify. Everything the recording stone recorded is true. That is what Instructor Zhou said when he was giving us a spiritual energy lesson this morning. Right. I'm also willing to testify. Every time in class, Instructor Zhou is very impatient. He doesn't answer our questions and even ridicules us. I'm willing to swear an oath. If these words weren't spoken by Instructor Zhou, and if I lied, he'll be struck by lightning. I'm also willing. The students of the Huang class were filled with righteous indignation. If Instructor Zhou was not replaced, our Huang class would not be doing well. At that time, during the mid-year competition, we would be eliminated, so we had to get rid of him. When the onlookers saw that the students of the Huang class even swore on their inner demons, they were even more certain that the recording stone was real. In that case, Instructor Zhou had gone too far. He clearly misled the students. Yun Chujio put away the recording stone, then her small face turned stiff. Instructors, students, I believe that with your intelligence and wisdom, you have already understood Instructor Zhou's sinister intentions. He just wants to delay the progress of our Huang class. His intentions are extremely sinister. I admit that our Huang class might not be as talented as the students of the other three classes, but we all entered the exam together fairly, so what right do we have to be treated like this? Instructor Zhou, as an instructor, you intentionally misled other people's children. Do you still deserve to be called an instructor? Instructor Zhou had originally thought that the students of the Huang class would feel inferior and give up on themselves if they did not understand the spiritual energy class. They would not have suspected that they had been misled by him. Who would have thought that there would be such a weirdo among them? She had actually used a recording stone to record the contents of the lesson. Moreover, he had said so many inappropriate words today. It was likely things would not go well for him. Instructor Zhou thought for a while, then he shouted with a fierce expression, "What do you know about teaching?" It is precisely because your qualifications are not high that I have changed my teaching methods. I am not trying to provoke you. I am trying to stimulate your potential. Humph. You don't know what's good for you. After Instructor Zhou finished speaking, he flicked his sleeves and left, heading straight for Deputy Dean Yin's study. He knew that if he did not think of a way out of that situation, he would definitely be fired. Chapter 1058, Looking for the Dean. When Yun Chujio saw that Instructor Zhou had left, she blinked her eyes. Instructor Zhou must have called for reinforcements, so she had to be ahead of him. Otherwise, if she did not finish him off soon, she would be in trouble instead. When Yun Chujio thought of that, she jumped down from the table and said to the students of the Huang class, "You guys continue to eat, I'm going out for a stroll." Before everyone could react, Yun Chujio had already disappeared like a rabbit. Everyone could not help but click their tongues in wonder. This little girl's spiritual power was low, but they didn't expect her movement technique to be so fast. She had disappeared so quickly. Where did she go? At the time, Yun Chujio had already arrived outside Dean Huangfu's courtyard. She was also fearless. She did not even consider whether Dean Huangfu would meet a student of the Huang class so casually. Yun Chujio hopped outside Dean Huangfu's courtyard and a burly guard stopped Yun Chujio. "Brother guard, please inform him that the first year's Huang class, Yun Chujio, is requesting to meet the dean. Tell him she says that it has something to do with the rise and fall of Tianyuan Academy." Yun Chujio's small face was very serious. The guard was shocked by Yun Chujio's words and serious expression. "Wait a moment here." After a short while, the guard walked out. "Yun Chujio, the dean wants you to go in." Yun Chujio smiled at the guard. "Okay, thank you, brother guard." The guard thought to himself, sometimes you have to have some tricks up your sleeve. If it were not for her words, the guard would not have informed the dean and he would not have agreed to meet a first-year student like her. Yun Chujio hopped into the courtyard. Although it was not very big, the interior was very elegant. Yun Chujio followed the direction of the guard and walked to the outside of Dean Huangfu's study. After Yun Chujio knocked on the door a few times, Dean Huangfu's voice came from inside. "Come in." Yun Chujio pushed the door open and entered. She saw Dean Huangfu sitting behind the desk and she hurriedly bowed. "Greetings, Dean." Dean Huangfu nodded. "I heard that you have something important to report to me regarding the rise and fall of Tianyuan Academy." "That's right, Dean, I'm not exaggerating." "What kind of place is our Tianyuan Academy?" "It's a place that teaches and educates people." "If someone intentionally misleads people's children, do you think this is a major matter that concerns the rise and fall of our Tianyuan Academy?" "Oh. Intentionally misleading people's children? What's going on?" Dean Huangfu frowned. Yun Chujio told him everything about Instructor Zhou and handed the recording stone to Dean Huangfu. "Dean, if you feel that the evidence I provided is not reliable, you can send someone to secretly investigate. Instructor Zhou has ulterior motives." It had already been more than 20 days since the start of the semester, and the other 3 classes' students had already learned most of the lessons regarding the materialization of spiritual power. Our Huang class also has good students, and yet many of our students cannot understand a thing he taught us to this day. When it's time for examinations, our Huang class results would not be good, and he would give an excuse saying that our qualifications were too low. That bastard is too sinister and despicable. Sir Dean, I had already exposed Instructor Zhou's ugly behavior in the cafeteria just now. He shamelessly said that it was to motivate us and then left in a hurry with his tail between his legs. I always felt that this matter could only be completely resolved by you, so I thickened my skin and came to look for you. I hope you won't blame me. Yun Chujia's small face was full of emotions. One moment she was furious, the next moment she looked pitiful. Chapter 1059, The Little Devil Wants to Learn Beast Taming. Yun Chujio, you may go back. I will send someone to deal with this matter immediately. Dean Huangfu thought to himself that it would be a pity if this little girl did not report something like that. Instructor Zhou was really detestable. It was fine if he usually formed a group for personal gain, but he made a joke about the student's future. He deserved to be punished. After she thanked Dean Huangfu, Yun Chujio hopped out of Dean Huangfu's courtyard. It was unknown how Dean Huangfu had negotiated with Deputy Dean Yin. In any case, in less than 2 days, Instructor Zhou was fired. The new person to teach the Huang class was Instructor Ji Sha. In fact, the other 3 classes instructors of the Spirit Energy class had their instructors in charge teach them their Spiritual Power class. Only the Huang class was assigned to Instructor Zhou. The students of the Huang class were very uncertain at the beginning. Could Instructor Ji Sha be able to do it? Not only was he sloppy, but he could not be seen all day long. If it were not for the class monitor, their Huang class would be like a child without a mother. Unexpectedly, when Instructor Ji Sha taught them, he was more than 100 times better than Instructor Zhou. Not only was his lectures deep and simple, but he was also very vivid in his descriptions. Everyone immediately felt like they had found some treasure. Yun Chujio was puzzled. How did Instructor Ji Sha, who had such a high standard of lecture, end up in such a miserable state? Yun Chujio counted with her fingers. If she went to the Spirit Beast Garden again today, she would not have to go again in the future. Thus, she hopped to the Spirit Beast Garden. After Yun Chujio had cleaned the bear house, she praised the 8 barbaric bears and then hopped to the vermilion-beaked long-feathered crane's beast house. A small part of the tail feathers of the vermilion-beaked long-feathered cranes had already grown back. They were now very obedient, afraid that Yun Chujio would cause trouble for them again. Little babies, today is the last time I will help you clean the beast house. In the future, there will be very few opportunities for us to meet. Don't miss me too much. Yun Chujio said after she cleaned the vermilion-beaked long-feathered crane's beast house. After they listened to her parting words, the vermilion-beaked long-feathered cranes barely held back the urge to sing a song. That little devil was finally going to leave. They could finally return to the days where they were free. Their feathers were finally safe. Why aren't you saying anything? Are you missing me already? Don't worry, there will be a beast taming class in a few days. When that time comes, I will come and play with you. Yun Chujio said with a smile. The crane group's mood instantly fell from the clouds to the 18th level of hell. What? The little devil wanted to learn beast taming techniques. Oh God, oh Earth, their days were numbered. Who could save them? Obviously, the crane's prayers did not have any effect. 3 days later, the first grade's beast taming class began. As it was an elective class, not many people attended the class. Therefore, there was no distinction between the 4 classes, Tian, Di, Xian, and Huang. All the first grade students attended the class together. That meant that she would eventually run into her rivals. Sure enough, Yin Xuecheng and Yin Sulian also chose to attend the beast taming class. Yin Zucheng's expression was very haggard. Ever since he sent out those assassins and they did not return, he had been worried for several days. He felt uneasy in his heart the entire time. And the worst thing was that when he went to the Itsui Tower during his break, he found that his body could no longer function normally. No matter how those women teased him, there was no response. He secretly went to a few medical centers and spent a lot of money to buy a lot of medicine, but it still had no effect. He could only thicken his skin and see Deputy Dean Yin. Deputy Dean Ian did not find out the reason, so he had to let him cultivate in peace. If there was a chance, he would look for Herb King by Lee of Herb King Valley to check it out. Chapter 1060, The Submission of 10,000 Beasts. Compared to Yin Zucheng's drooping head, Yin Sulian had a proud expression on her face. With Yin Xinlian's care, Yin Sulian had a good time in the Tian class. Around her, some people flattered her. It was as if the stars had supported the moon. Yin Xinlian saw that Yun Chujio had also chosen the beast-taming class. She could not help but twitch her lips. Yun Chujio, don't tell me you think that after cleaning the spirit beast house for a few days, you can tame beasts. TSK, it's not that I look down on you, beast-taming masters can only control beasts of a lower level than themselves. Your first level of spirit sect is equivalent to a level 16 demon beast. The lowest level of demon beasts here are all level 16. You have no way to make use of these beast-taming skills, so you'd better give up as soon as possible. Ha! You'd better hurry up and cultivate your spirit energy. I heard that the spirit power lessons of your Huang class are a complete mess. When you're eliminated, please don't go and hang yourself from sadness, ha ha ha. Yin Sulian's followers also started to laugh wildly, mocking Yun Chujio for overestimating herself. Feng Ming and the other two were worried about Yun Chujio, so they also followed her and chose to attend the beast-taming class. After all, since it was an elective and there was no test, they had nothing to lose. After they heard Yin Sulian's words, they immediately wanted to refute her, but Yun Chujio waved her hand and said indifferently, Yin Sulian, I thought you had learned how to be smart, but you're still so stupid after all this time. The beast-taming technique is not something that can be achieved overnight, and the instructor won't let you control the spirit beast now. The first grade is only teaching some basic seals, and even if you practice, you will only find some low-level beasts. Humph. Nonsense. There are no demonic beasts below the 16th level in this spirit beast garden. Where can the instructor find low-level demonic beasts for us to practice on? Yin Sulian said disdainfully. Yun Chujio curled her lips. I said you are stupid, but it seems that was too generous. The level of an adult demonic beast is naturally high, so instead, we can find some young demonic beasts to practice with. When Yun Chujio had cleaned the beast house, she once saw that the second-grade students all looked for some younger demonic beasts to practice with. That was how she figured out that technique. Although Yin Sulian wanted to refute Yun Chujio, she had to admit that perhaps what Yun Chujio said was right. They had just started learning the beast-taming technique, so it was impossible for them to control a level 16 adult demon beast. Just when Yin Sulian was still at a loss for words, the instructor of the beast-taming class arrived. Yun Chujio took a look. Was this not the third grade's instructor Qian? It seemed that old man Huangfu was quite stingy. To save money, one employee had to do several jobs. In fact, Yun Chujio had wronged Dean Huangfu. Among the 5 techniques of cultivators, beast taming was relatively useless. Moreover, very few people could cultivate their beast taming skills to a high level. Therefore, despite the Tianyuan Academy's generous treatment, they only managed to recruit a few beast taming masters. Instructor Qian took on both the first and third grade beast taming classes. Instructor Qian had a very deep impression of Yun Chujio. After he went back, he carefully thought about the matter of the crane group's tail feathers being plucked. He felt that it was not Wu Heng who did it. On the contrary, this little girl was a more likely suspect, so he was very curious, how did this little girl at the first level of the spirit sect deal with an entire group of cranes? After all, there were more than 20 level 16 demonic birds in there. Instructor Qian now saw that Yun Chujio had chosen to take the beast-taming class, so he paid more attention to her. He was ready to observe what special abilities she had. Instructor Qian looked around at everyone, then he said, beast taming has always been regarded as the most useless subject among the 5 arts of cultivators. It isn't. The reason why everyone feels that beast taming isn't very useful is that their beast taming art hasn't been cultivated to a certain level. If they cultivate it to a certain level, even 10,000 beasts will submit to their will, and it will be much more powerful than the other 4 arts. When Feng Ming and the other 2 heard Instructor Qian say this, they cursed in their hearts. Junior sister little Jiu of ours does not have any knowledge on beast taming, yet she can still make all sorts of beasts submit to her. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.